made it through hunger, you made it through pain, you made it through drought and you made it through rain. You rose over conflict, you've conquered your shame. You've done it before and you'll do it again.
You made it through hunger, you made it through pain,
yeah.
You made it through drought and you made it through rain. You rose over conflict, you conquered your shame.
Yeah.
You've done it before and you'll do it again.
There is nothing that can ever take your place, 'cause you made it here. You are one of us, this global human race. You made it here.
There is nothing that can ever take your place,
'cause you made it here. You are one of us, this global human race. You made it here.
You made it through darkness, you made up your mind.
Yeah.
You dealt with the hardest of times.
Oh.
You're finding your joy now and learning to shine.
Oh.
Enjoying your voice and reclaiming your time.
Again, you
Made it through darkness,
yeah.
you made up your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
You dealt with the hardest of times.
You're
Finding your joy
now.
learning to shine.
Enjoy.
Enjoying your voice and reclaiming your time.
There is nothing that can ever take your place.
You made it here.
You are one of us, this global human race.
You made it
Yeah.
here.
There is nothing that can ever take your place.
You made it here.
You are one of us, this global human race.
You made it
If you know that you made it, come on, stand up and say it. If you know that you made it, don't let them hold you back any longer.
If you know that you made it,
Give up.
come on, stand up and say it. That you made it.
Don't let them hold you back any longer. If you know that you made it, come on, say it. Come on, stand up and say it. If you know that you made it, don't let them hold you back any longer. 'Cause there is nothing that can ever take your place.
You made it here.
You are one of us, this global human race.
You made it
Oh, there's nothing that could ever take your place. Is anybody glad that you made it?
Also, we are looking for volunteers, like desperately looking for volunteers. So, chat moderators, I realize we're actually going to need StreamYard moderators, community managers, Discord, YouTube, Patreon, Facebook, all of those things. And the reason my focus is there and why I would like to see that, or would like to have some volunteers in that capacity, so that we're making sure that we're not overlooking community. I don't want this to become a personality cult where people are just like, oh, I really like Darante. Darante can't save anybody. I want us to separate ourselves from that savior complex and realize that the beauty is in our relationships with each other. I hate to sound cliche, but there are no little U's and big I's. It's all of us together, and it really only works that way. So I want to make sure we're being intentional about that. That's the best way you can say that. The more little things you have in the machine bouncing around, the more friction you get, the more energy you get. The reason why so many of our movements fail is because we rob ourselves of that community aspect. It's not about building attention around one person, one idea, one identity. It's about building attention around a movement. And I think what we all just did here is we just demonstrated to everybody watching that humans can engage without the need for superstition. We can appreciate the world around us. We can play dress up. We don't have a problem with any of that, just long as I don't have to believe that this actually happened. And what we just saw here, just in everybody's response, is we could be taking this time to appreciate each other, to appreciate our relationship with the environment, the natural world that we live in, and to actually learn and refamiliarize ourselves, reacclimate ourselves with what different cultures have said about this time.
Wow. It's hard to believe that that was 2 years ago. That was March 31st, 2024, when we had our very first Sunday session. And we purposefully did it on what's traditionally known as Easter Sunday. And we called that very first one a very secular Easter Sunday. And we had a very good time. We had some special guests with us. But that was the starting place. That was the day where we decided to plant our flag in the sand and present Bridge City as a viable option, as a community alternative, as something that exists in this world to rebuild belonging in a world where it has been for so long defined by believing. And here we are, 2 years later, still standing, better yet, still rising. For all of you who are a part of this wonderful community, I just want to say happy anniversary. I had to interrupt the programming today to be the first one to say it. Just to be the first one to say it, but I love you all. Thank you for being a part of this community. Let's celebrate everything that we've been able to accomplish so far while never ceasing to forget that we're just getting started. So if you're excited about Bridge City and all the things to come, go ahead and drop a happy anniversary in the chat and let's get today's Sunday session started. I'll see you.
Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing out there? Listen, welcome to Sunday Sessions. You know, this is our weekly touch point for connection, community, and conversation. So whether you're watching us live, thank you, or you're watching on the global campus or having a local watch party, or you're going to catch the replay, we appreciate you too, okay? And it wouldn't be right if we didn't mention our mission, and that is to simply help you connect better, build better, and live better. And our values are also clear. We are forward thinking, we are people centric, and we are life affirming. Okay, affirm yourself sometimes. That's what you got to do. Our why is the heartbeat of it all, and that is that people matter. Everything we do revolves around that concept that people matter. And we don't all have it together, right? We don't have to be perfect here. We are just intentional about connection and shared responsibility and honest thinking, okay? And I love that about us. Now, if this is your first time with us, listen, we have a first time gift for you. I need you to follow that link, okay, on the screen or click it from the chat, okay? And that is our small token of hospitality, and it's just giving you a guide of how to navigate connection a little bit better. So we would love for you to go ahead and get that. And if you are a regular, you are a returner, okay, and this is home for you, we appreciate you as well. You keep us going, you keep us moving, you keep us motivated. And I'm so excited for this new series because our March series, we're going to be talking about the greater gospel. Okay. You remember the good news? We talk about the greater gospel, okay? For a long time, many of us have been given a gospel that's been kind of too small, right? And now we're moving beyond those old frameworks and we're discovering something more powerful. And so throughout this series, we're going to be exploring how freedom from religious superstition actually gives us a greater gospel, one that is radical but also inclusive and deeply empowering and centered on human flourishing here and now. So we're moving from a message of escape to a message of evolution. How about that? And by the end of the series, the goal is for us to see when you lose the constructs, you don't lose the truth. You finally find freedom in it. Okay. And by the way, if you didn't know, March is Women's History Month and also National Reading Month. I have 4 book recommendations for you for my, these are by U.S. women authors, but of course, those in other countries, please drop your women authors in the chat that you love and your recommendations as well. Listen, I have to mention Maya Angelou, okay? She has 7 autobiographies, but this one is one of my favorites. It's her second one, Gathered Together in My Name. I love this. This is continuing after I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. If you want to dive a little bit more into her mindset, she is super funny. In her earlier years, this is a good one to follow and read. And none other, this next one, The Three Mothers. And this is how the mothers of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and James Baldwin shaped a nation. This is so good. This dives more into the mother's life and their journey and how they navigated as they were having children and how they raised them and what happened during that. And this is by Anna Tubb. So go check that out. If you're into historical fiction and you haven't checked out The Personal Librarian, this actually came out last year. This is 2 women. They're co-authors of this book, and they actually write together a lot. And that's Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Moray. And this book follows Belle DaCosta and her family. And her name is actually Abella, and how she got the job with JP Morgan Chase. And it's a very interesting journey here and what their family goes through and what she decides to do. And if you don't know about Miss Taylor Jenkins Reid, oh my goodness, she writes some amazing stories. She came out with a book in 2025 called Atmosphere. And this book actually follows women scientists, the first women scientists who went out to be a part of the NASA space shuttle program in the 1980s. And so, a very great story. And if you don't already, what are you waiting on? Go ahead and follow me on my YouTube channel at Darante LaMar. I had to plug it in, okay? Give me a time to plug it in. But over there, I do bookish content, motivational videos, personal development, and a little vlogs here and there. So if you like that type of content, go hang out with me over there. All right. But before we get into today's conversation, let's go ahead and check out Bridge City News.
What's up, Bridge City? Happy Sunday, or whatever day it is on your side of the world. My name is Elaine, and I'm here to give you a look at what's happening across our community. There's a lot going on here. We are growing and shifting and unfolding, and I want to make sure that you're in the loop. At Bridge City Global, Women's History Month is a time to honor the brilliance, resilience, and leadership of women whose impact shapes families, workplaces, movements, and communities across the world every single day. From organizing and caregiving to leading change, building businesses, and creating opportunity, women are often a driving force behind strong, thriving communities. This month, we celebrate the power of women and recommit to building communities that reflect their strength, wisdom, and lasting influence. We're under construction. We've officially launched the lobby of our global campus. It's a one-stop shop to move through the campus experience and see how we're growing and expanding as a community. There, you will find our Welcome Center, Event Center, Business Center, and more. Drop by today and check out how our global campus is expanding to accommodate our growth. Want to host a watch party? Have you ever been in the middle of a Sunday session and thought, I wish this was available in my city in person? Well, you could be the person who becomes that spark. Hosting a weekly watch party is the first step to bringing the Bridge City experience to your city. A watch party is a small, in-person gathering, usually 3 or more people, where friends meet at someone's home or venue to watch the community's weekly online session together, creating a shared experience for community, conversation, and growth. It's about building relationships and community around our mission and message, with hosts providing a welcoming space, food, and discussion supported by our community resources. Visit the link to discover everything you need to start, host, and lead a watch party. Every first Sunday of the month is Bridge City Movie Night. And in April, we'll be watching Sinners, a supernatural horror thriller directed by Ryan Coogler, who also directed Marvel's Black Panther movies. Wakanda Forever, yes, hunty! Sinners features Michael B. Jordan in a dual role as 1930s Mississippi twins, Smoke and Stack, who have returned to their hometown to start a life anew. The brothers open a juke joint only to confront a terrifying evil that forces them to defend their community over a single brutal night. Your girl can't handle all that, so Elaine gonna be sitting this one out, but y'all make sure y'all show up, okay? Connect with like-minded people on a deeper level by joining one of our clubs. This month, we're highlighting the Wellness Club. The Wellness Club is dedicated to fostering self-awareness and emotional well-being through mindful practices. Members will explore tools and practices like breathing exercises, meditation, journaling, and stretching, all aimed at promoting emotional regulation and inner growth. Expect regular posts featuring wellness activities and self-care practices. Join, share, and learn which tools resonate best for you to cultivate a more balanced and resilient mindset. So make sure y'all join us in the Wellness Club. To all of our new members, welcome. We know that joining a new community, especially online, can be overwhelming. That's why we've been intentionally working on building a campus experience that helps orient you and makes it easy to navigate all that Bridge City is and offers. If you haven't already, visit the link today and make the most of your member experience, because at Bridge City, membership matters. Since the start of the year, more than 40 people have made the decision to connect with Bridge City as their community of choice, and we couldn't be more excited. Every new connection is a step closer to a better world. Make sure to explore the campus, complete the new member journey, and introduce yourself so that you can start making an impact. Are you ready to get involved? Visit our Teams page to explore the growing number of opportunities to do the work of community. As we're moving from conceptual to operational, we need volunteers to be the bridge so that people can see the vision. Volunteering isn't just about helping the community look good. It's how we empower the community to actually do good. Every volunteer expands our capacity to support our growing body of members and mobilize around our mission in real time. And it's also the easiest way to build new relationships that make life meaningful. Becoming a volunteer gives you more people to call, more people to laugh with, and more people to face life with. Visit the link on the screen to explore the growing number of opportunities to get involved. And if you don't see anything that piques your interest, reach out to the team. At Bridge City, we understand that a greater gospel requires a greater commitment to one another. Every second Tuesday of the month is Giving Tuesday. Now, you know how we do things over here. We don't ask for tithes, we don't collect dues, and we certainly don't use guilt as a motivator. However, this community is sustained by the regular, intentional contributions of our members. Your radical generosity is what empowers us to show up every Sunday. It's what allows us to provide an expansive global campus experience and to launch the local events that make new, real-world communities possible. Giving Tuesday is our monthly reminder that this vision doesn't build itself. It's built by people. We can't offer you a mansion in the afterlife in exchange for your gift. But what we can offer is continued community, expanding resources, and the collective power to change the world in real time. If you understand our mission is worth building and our vision is worth supporting, mark the second Tuesday of this month on your calendar. Let's choose association over isolation, and let's fund the freedom we're finding together. Generosity is making this possible, and thank you for building with us. That's everything for this week. This is a great opportunity to share the stream before the conversation starts. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you for being the bridge. Let's get into today's conversation. Take it away, Darante.
Welcome in, everyone. Happy Sunday. Oh man, today is going to be an incredible conversation. I hope you all are excited, are as excited as I am, because hey, I am excited. Before we jump into this, as always, I got to let you know, if this is your first time here, we do have a gift that we love to get out to you. As I always say, this is not an attempt to get an email address from you. We have other ways of doing that. So you don't have to give us your email to get this gift. You just go there, you download it, and bam, you got a new resource in your hand that's going to help you connect better. Also, as y'all are coming in, make sure to let us know where you're watching from. You never know, you might be watching with your neighbors. So as you're coming in, let us know where you're watching from. And I think y'all have already seen by now, this is our second anniversary. And so we're excited. We've been doing this thing for 2 years now. And what better way to really celebrate this than with the panel conversation? Today, we are closing out our Greater Gospel series. And I love to see in the chat how y'all have been feeling about this series, man. It's been really good to me. I've enjoyed it. I think it's brought out a little bit of the preacher in me at some points. We had a really good time. Rhode Island is in the house. Come on now. We had a really good time last week streaming live from Mississippi State University. Wow, isn't that amazing? It was amazing for me. And so we've started this series, Greater Gospel, for the month of March. And I told you all that this series came from a conversation that I had with Joe Pittenger, who's here today. He's in the back. I'm getting ready to bring them all on stage now. We're getting ready to have the conversation. Phoenix is in the house. And I asked him, like, hey, why do you do this? What's the reason? Why do you still share? Why do you still preach? Like, Joe is literally a pastor, if you will, an executive director of a progressive spiritual values-based community in Canada. And he still kind of does the same work that Kyle and I do. And I had to ask, like, why do you do it? And for him, the answer was, we have the bigger gospel. And I'm like, man, you have no clue how spot on you are with that. So for today, we're going to have 3 special guests with me. All 4 of us come from ministry context. All 4 of us have separated from religion. And yet all 4 of us are still deeply invested in people. So this weekend, I want to explore not just what we left, but what we kept, what changed, and why we're still here. It's going to be Joe, it's going to be Kyle, and then Britt is going to be joining us for the last leg of this conversation. She had an event to come up, but we were still able to work it out. But if y'all will, just show some love for our guests today, man. We have Joe with us, and we have Kyle. Oh, I got to take me off a solo. I'm on solo. Look at that. Welcome in, y'all. How are y'all doing today? It's so great to have you both with us. Kyle, I haven't had you on in probably in about a year now. And I think, Joe, the last time I had you on was at the end of last year. So let's get an update. And if we can, we'll start with Kyle. Kyle, what's been going on in your world, man? What can we celebrate you about today, brother?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Oh, not too much. Same old, just here trying to do what we do to inspire people, to encourage people and motivate people to, believe in themselves and value self-love and self-worth and self-appreciation and, the same old. So just hitting the grind without the grind, so to speak.
Without the grind. I love it, man. I'm so glad to have you here. I think we're going to have some good conversation today. Joe, man, what's been going on in your world, brother?
Hey, Darante, first off, thank you for having me back on. I guess I didn't do too bad the first time you had me back, but I also want to say hey to Kyle. I don't think I've met you before, so
First
good
time
to meet you. And to anybody else who's out there, I'm so glad that you're joining in. What's been new for me? I've been working on a series, been going through a series at the community that I lead, as well as writing a book on the content, and that's a lot of people toss around the word love, but the book is about what love really is, the different components of it, and how we can gain greater clarity and put it into action into our life more. So been working on that. I'm excited for that. Hopefully it'll be done this summer. But that's what's been good for me, and just enjoying building community, which I think y'all know a little bit about. So that's always a fun challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to let everybody know who's watching. We will be taking questions today. So if you have some questions for any of us today, please put them in with a super chat so we'll know that you're serious and not just curious. And as long as your question is relevant and respectful, we'll make sure to platform it and get it shopped around for our panel today. I have quite a few questions for our guests starting off. So I'm going to start off with some of my own questions. Man, I see we got a lot of places in the chat. Is that okay? See? Okay. South Carolina, I think I saw NYC, Vancouver's in the house. Man, we have such a beautiful community here. All right. So listen, brothers, I got questions for you. And so I'll start off with the question that actually led to this series, right? And that question is like, why? I could have become an atheist and just really just moved on about my life and just went and did something different. I could be making music. I could go to law school or something, just do something totally different. And somehow I'm still out here, sharing a message that I consider good news, and actually that I consider maybe even greater news. And so the question is, you got out, but for whatever reason, you're still here. Why are you still here? Why are you still showing up for people? Why do you even care about people? Why aren't you a nihilist just floating off somewhere and just saying, oh, fuck everybody, and it's just me. Damn it. I said I was going to stop cussing on Sundays. It's too early in the morning. I'm sorry.
You got to start a quarter jar.
You know what I'm saying?
With inflation, a $20 jar.
Right? So what is it, brothers? Why are y'all still out here preaching the good news? And whichever one of y'all want to jump out first, feel free to.
Yeah, I can start if you want. When Darante and I we talked this summer at an event, and he asked me, why do you do what you do? And the answer that I gave him was, I think that the gospel's bigger, and I look at. Maybe a lot of what our missions are throughout life. And it's kind of like a table in a way. And the more expansive and inclusive we can make that table, that's good news. And so I guess what I mean by that is within a lot of traditional religion, unfortunately, that table is small. If you have a seat at the table, that's great. But if you don't, it's not good. And when I have made what I would consider progress in my life, what I have felt is not, yes, I felt lost in some ways, but I've also felt a great gain, that my table is more expansive as well as what I can offer to other people. And that, it really truly excites me to be a part of inclusive community building. So that's what motivates me. And I'll give one other thing is, it's not completely altruistic. It's good for me.
Yes.
It's good to be a part of it, but really, the community I lead, we have a main value that says we're grounded in life together. What I do affects you, and what you do affects me. And when I make the table better, I make our world better, I get to be a part of it. But it's also good for me, directly and indirectly. So that would be my answer.
What I love about that is just that aspect of like more people can now sit at my table. I can now have more people at my table. That is beautiful. Kyle, what about you, bro?
For me, it's people, right?
It's
my heart and passion for people. And I was raised in a Christian environment, and I really believe that was it. And I followed that pathway, and I took what I knew and what I was given and what I learned, and I tried to use it to make lives a little bit better, until I realized it really wasn't doing much of that at all. And I guess I couldn't really stop trying to do what my heart feels passionate about, and that's sharing something that I think will help people. Yeah. And so, when my hope is that no one gets hurt any longer by the religious narratives we've been told and that have been so deeply ingrained in people, that people can find their way out of those things, even if you want to hold on to the belief that there is a God. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you want to hold on to a belief that there is a God. I just don't think that it requires all these other things that have been so harmful to people over years, especially the fear and the manipulation and all those things, the control and and things of that nature. So I just want to see people free. I want to see people happy. I want to see people at peace. I want to see people that will begin to understand their self-worth and their self-value and how to love themselves. Something that, whether it's in a religious world or the secular world, it's not talked about enough, the value of self-love and self-worth and self-appreciation. And, if we can shine the light on how valuable we are as individuals, then, that table gets a lot bigger, like my brother was saying, because when I see you as I see me, and I don't see all of these things that we thought divided us, it gets a little bit better for all of us. And I think that's really what I'm after, is how can we make it better for everybody?
Come on now. And that immediately inspires a question in me that's not from our guide here, but that is, how do you still find a way to see value in people? Like, if we look at the world now, it's so polarized. There's so much to be angry about. How do you still find a way to see value in people as individuals? And how do you even see value in people beyond differences, like our past differences? How are y'all navigating that?
I can take a stab at this one. Yeah, whew, that's a hard one there. But the truth of the matter is, I'm going to use a churchy word here. I actually said this. I was leading a guided meditation this morning, and I said we need grace, or something like that. And I said to give yourself grace, because we need that. And I think. I don't mean that in some like spiritual, your soul has weight, you're going to go to hell because of sins that you've committed kind of way. But what I mean is, we're all sharing in this human experience.
Yes.
We all can, I believe in radical empathy. I'm not going to say that it excuses what people do and the harm that they cause. However, I can logically see sometimes how they might come to a belief, and not just a belief, but an action. It doesn't mean that we can't work to try to better it, just as we would want ourselves bettered. But I think just trying to practice radical empathy and remembering the things that do unite us. Two things can both be true at once. There can be harmful behavior, but yet there can also be humanity.
I love that. Yes. Whew. Kyle, you got anything on that one?
Yeah, for me, I look for it. I'm intentional about looking for the good in people.
Ooh, yes.
I believe it's there in everyone. I believe that it's who we are at our core. I believe in our goodness as humans. I deeply, deeply believe in that. So I look for it. I saw a video once, and I used to watch a lot of World War II history shows. And I'd seen this scene several times, and it was a scene of Hitler on his balcony with his German shepherds. And the love he was showing these dogs was pretty remarkable. Now,
Wow.
I thought of Hitler all this time as the most evil thing alive, when he was alive. But he was showing this incredible love to these German shepherds, and it hit me. That man has love in him. Now, maybe it's not anywhere else. maybe he can't find love for anything else around him, but I saw love. Yeah. And so as despicable and horrible and all that stuff is that he did, it let me see that there is some love in that man. And he knew love. He understood love because he was displaying it to these dogs. And I think if we take some time to try to find the good in people, we can, again, not excuse it and not, because it's very hard when you, especially you talk about people who've been victimized and you say, but there's good in that person who victimized you. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, they hurt me, they did this, they did that. And I understand that. And I in no way, shape, or form am siding with the perpetrators over the victim. But what I am saying is there's something in that person that drove them or is driving them to be how they are. And, if we can find a way to heal that, if we can find a way to address that, then, clearly they won't be doing the things they're doing. So I try to be intentional in looking for it, and it's not always easy because God knows
No.
you piss me the fuck off sometimes, you know.
Right.
You know, and you just don't want to look for it. But being no longer being a Christian makes it easier for me because I'm not looking for a certain standard. I'm not looking for a certain package that you have to be in order for me to see goodness in you. Now I just look for it in the human character of the person themselves.
No, I absolutely love that. That takes a lot of maturity. That takes like sitting in the nuance of humanity, and you know, it's something that I think I shared last Sunday, and I know I've said it before, but I've kind of disassociated from the idea of good people and bad people, and that is just that there are people, and
Right.
sometimes we have really good interactions with people, and sometimes we have really bad interactions with people. And I like to try to leave it there, but definitely the idea of being intentional about looking for good in people, being intentional about saying, you know, listen, man, it's hard to find sometimes, especially now, man. You go online and you just think everybody is just, yeesh. Oh my goodness. I have so many opinions about everybody that's out there right now, you know. But there's this challenge of like, no, let's look for that good because we need that. And that's a better practice. It's a more productive practice. It's actually going to get us somewhere. And it's like Kyle said, if you look for the good, you will find it. And that works on the other way around. If you look for the bad, guess what? You're going to find it. And that's why I think we almost treat like finding bad in people like a revelation. You know, like, oh, I just found out somebody is a horrible person. Oh, you just found out? You just found out that people have horrible opinions and all of these other things. This is new to you, you know, and we forget that, like, no, we're all a part of a societal process. And like Joe said, you can, even when you disagree with where someone got to their conclusion, you can see how they might have been shaped to get there, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's beautiful to me, man. I didn't mean to start it with such a heavy question, y'all, but well, technically y'all did it because it was your answers that led us there. All right, I'll give us a little lighter one this time, and this one is from the guide. So, what was harder for you? Was it stop believing in God, or was it letting go of the version of yourself that was built around ministry? Because ministry is like it's such a major part of your identity, right? Even when I'm talking to my team now and they're like, hey, I'm not going to be able to be there next Sunday or whatnot. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I'll have this reminder like, man, the old me, like back when I was pastoring, you're not going to be here next Sunday? Like, why not? Is God not important for you? You know, like, you know, did he not wake you up this morning, clothed in your right mind, started you on your way and all that good stuff? And I realized, especially after deconversion, that so much of that was more about my ego than it was about God, because it felt like if people weren't showing up, if people weren't being there, then that meant I wasn't being a good pastor. So what was harder for you? Was it letting go of the God belief or the version of yourself that had been built around that belief in ministry? And either one of you can jump out at it. It's the wild, wild west around here.
I think for me, it was letting go of the me that I had finally accepted. Because I never wanted to be a pastor. There was nothing inside of me that desired it, wanted it, or reached for it. And to that, I would say, well, that's probably because every good pastor never really wanted to be a pastor anyway. You know? But at some point, around 2007, after nearly 10 years of pastoring, I'd finally, you know, kind of said, okay, God, Jesus, you're Lord over this thing. I fully dive in and I give it my everything. I accept my calling. I accept my place and all this kind of stuff. And I really dove in. So when I started deconverting, getting rid of the God idea really wasn't that hard for me because truthfully, I always had doubt from the very beginning. You know, I had doubts from day one about this God and his goodness and all these kind of things. So when I was deconverting, I started to feel this incredible loss, like someone very close to me had died. And I was grieving almost on a day-to-day basis, and I didn't really know what it was. And the further I went down the road, I started realizing that I was literally feeling the death of me. And because it's what I had known since I was 13. It was who I was trying to be since I was 13 and all that kind of stuff. So that part for me was a lot harder, letting that part die so that I can be reborn to who I really wanted to be. The God part was really rather easy because I seriously had doubts pretty much along the way.
No, I definitely identify with the God part. Was probably the easiest part to let go. Like once I gave myself permission, that was easy. Joe, how was it for you, man?
Yeah. So you said that we've been hitting some heavy questions. So I'll start with something light, and it's that my aunt, who's kind of like a mother to me, she just texted me. She's watching this, and she said, "You need a haircut." To me, she said, you guys, you got your hair all nice and tight or whatnot, or lack of, no offense. But she said, you need a haircut. So sorry, everybody.
Join the ball club.
I'm supposed to go get a haircut in a couple days, but I mean, you're pretty cool, Darante, but I don't know if you're cool enough for me to drop money on a haircut, earlier than what I normally do. So, all right. So to try to answer the question, which part was harder? I think for me, the question of God was something that changed in different ways for a number of years. So it was kind of a slow death, and I don't know if I would say a complete death. I'm a wandering agnostic, and
I like it.
It's still something I wrestle with. However, I'll just go ahead and say, in case people are like, wondering with it, is I simply think that God is spelled God. God is spelled good. We've heard it said before, God is love. I think the reverse of that true. Love is God. That's the most ultimate thing. The theoretical, whether there's something up there in the sky or whatnot, man, that's above my pay grade. What I do know is the here and now, and so I guess all that to say is those viewpoints had changed. Even when I was in seminary, I was wrestling with questions. I remember asking questions sometimes and everybody in class looking over at me saying, you can't say that, And I was like, why not, But that thing of what happened for me is I resigned from my church. While deconverting or looking at things in a different way. And so literally in the span of an hour, I went into a board meeting. An hour later, I was relieved from the career that I loved. And that was a huge transition. And Kyle, I think you said things about, I forget how you worded it, but just speaking some Christianese here. For me, it was taking up my cross. It was saying, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. To do the right thing, to say, hey, I can't hold to these same doctrines and creeds anymore. It meant a lot of loss, but here, man, I'm preaching. If you want to find your life, you must lose it, and it was things like that. And isn't it ironic, what that eventually meant for me? But I'm not going to say it's been easy, but it's been worth it. And I'll give one more thing with this. I've said a lot, but I said that I believe that this might sound all hippie and whatnot, but love is God, or God is spelled God. What I mean by that, that's the most ultimate thing that we can go for. Man, I lost my train of thought. It was somewhere in there. But here's what I was getting at is that if I don't know, if I really wanted to pursue what I thought was good and right, and kind of in the theme of this whole series.
Yeah.
What's my good news? What's my greater gospel? And to me, it was good news to say, so what if I can't believe a certain way? Or, or anybody else, friends I've known, people along the way, that if I said, hey, if you can't believe in supernatural events from thousands of years ago, you're going to hell. I didn't have to do that. In fact, I could say, hey, are you aiming to be a good person? You're good in my book. You belong at the table. So, yeah.
Come on. No, I absolutely love that. And just a reminder for everybody watching, if you have any questions, super chat them in and we'll get to them. I think one of the things that I definitely resonate with is that for me, I had been losing the belief along the way, like just along. I used to say that God was getting bigger and bigger and smaller at the same time, right? So the more I, was traversing through my ministry career, I started in a little Pentecostal holiness church, and their God was too small. And then I was in like these little word of faith churches, and their God, he was nice, but he was also too small because he seemed to only really care about wealthy people. And so then I switched to the more urban seeker friendly churches, and their God was a little more exclusive because they didn't have crosses in their buildings or anything like that. They didn't focus on doctrinal stuff, and so God was becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, to by the end, God was so big to me that there was no more room for the doctrine. There was no more room for the theology. There was no more room for anything else. It had just become, by my last few years of pastoring, I was kind of like you. God is good. Love is God. That's the most important thing. So by the time I realized, like, ooh, I don't think I believe in God at all. It wasn't a break in who I was. It wasn't a break in my identity. But then it was the thought after that. Well, who the hell am I now then? So, because I've been pastoring for I've been doing this since I was 11 years old, and my whole identity has been wrapped around this. And that was hard. And it wasn't just like preaching. It wasn't just that. There's the whole presentation of myself before that. Prior to that, no, you didn't really hear Darante cussing publicly. Prior to that, I had to be very, very well mannered, very well tempered, very well cleaned, and my whole identity had to depend on how people perceived me as a religious leader. And trying to figure out who the hell I was after that was hard for me. It was like learning how to walk all over again, because you give yourself this freedom that you never really had, and how do you live with that? And so that's another question that's not in the guide that I have to ask you, because ministers don't live just regular lives as Christians. When you're in the ministry, especially if you're committed to it, like, you hold yourself to a really, really high standard. How have your standards of living changed? Not talking about your money here, but how has your standards of living changed as far as how you show up in the world? Has there been, very minimal change, or have you been able to give yourself a little bit more freedom to explore things that you didn't allow yourself to explore before? What does life look like before you, I guess, before Jesus and after Jesus type of thing?
Well, for me, it's better because I'm more authentic. I'm authentically me.
Yeah.
And Darante, you spoke about it, that cage, that box that we lived in, and it was incredibly small. We had no space. We couldn't be free. We couldn't be ourselves. We walked around in constant fear because we never wanted to be exposed for our humanity. So for me, it's so much better because I'm free and I'm authentic, and I'm free to make a mistake in public, and I'm free to say what I really want to say around others, and I'm free to express my mind and share whatever I want to share. And I'm also better because my authenticity allows me, again, to meet people where they are, not where I think they should be in their beliefs, not where I think they should, or how I think they should look. So I'm able to engage with people from a real authentic place of, I don't want anything from you. I don't want you to come on my side. I don't want to convince you of anything. I just want you to be free as I am. So on those parts, I'm just a much better person. I'm kinder. I'm more loving. I'm much more graceful. As use the word Joe used earlier, I'm just a better person in the way I show up every day for myself and for others.
I love that. Joe, what about you, man?
Yeah. Remind me of the wording that you gave the question again. If you remember it.
Now we're gonna be playing with my memory here. Now we're playing some dangerous games. But ultimately, like, now that you're on the other side, of course, we had to live kind of stuck in these cages. Many of us did. Was there a cage for you before you transition out? And have you allowed yourself to live beyond that now? What is life like for you now that you've left the faith, as far as how you approach your standards of living? Maybe it's boundaries that you couldn't set before, or maybe it's boundaries that you finally removed and said, no, I'm going to explore these things.
Yeah.
How has life been for you?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I have visualized this before, that it's kind of like I was in this big house and it was a super old house. And I was in this little room, but that little room was the only room that I knew. And there's people in that room that seemed like, and not just seemed like, were, I believe, a kind, generous, compassionate people. And not saying all of them, of course, but for the most part.
Yeah.
And they said, here, you're curious about how this house got here. Well, we have the answer. It was written in, this manual, this book kind of thing. And yeah, you might, want to know about these other rooms, but here's how you get to know about them. You look in this book that we have. and I just remember, as I talked about asking questions in seminary, it was me just opening that door a little bit and kind of peeking out. And people saying, no, be careful. It's dangerous out there. Watch out. There's scary things out there. And they say curiosity kills the cat. And I would actually say even more than that, love grows.
Yeah.
Love wants to do better. Love wants to know. Love wants to explore. And maybe another phrasing I would give, love seeks to understand.
Yeah.
And if I were just to stay in my room, how could I understand my neighbor? If I took that command seriously that I've been taught, love my neighbor as myself, but I don't get to know my neighbor, if I don't get to understand their worldview, even if I don't agree with it. And that was the problem. I was told to, no, study it through this lens. If you have questions, go to christiananswers.com or whatever websites there are. Be careful. Don't go outside. But I think out of a good place. I could get more into the story of it, but I'll just say this, is that I realized that if I truly wanted to love my neighbor, I had to look outside of that room, like I said. And so I started looking outside. And I think this is one of the difficult things. If there's any Christians who are listening to this, I'm so glad you're here. And I really mean that. And this goes, I would say this is even wider than Christians. This goes for atheists, agnostics, whatever camp you're in. Don't be fundamental. If people are trying to explore different ways, allow them to do that, and don't keep people in that room. It's not a sin. It's not wrong to explore and to look at our world. And I think this is the key thing. And Kyle, I think you mentioned this earlier. It's be honest. There's so many people faking, putting a mask on. Be honest. If you don't know something, say I don't know it.
That's right.
But yeah. So I guess what changed for me, I was able to explore. I was able to look at how different people see different religions. How it turns out that people who are atheists or people who are atheists, they're not bad people. In fact, they're incredible people because they're being honest. They don't see a God. So what, and those who do see a God, as long as you're being an inclusive, loving person, I say good for you. But what changed is that I think my worldview, that table I talked about earlier, it just expanded. And I want to be careful in this. I'm not saying every day's been, I get to explore a new room. This is great. And there's times where you're being yanked in back by people saying, don't leave this room. Don't leave this room. And it's there's real tension in that. Because it's people that you love and care about. And for them, for you to leave the room, it's them saying, what? You don't think our way's any good? You don't think we're smart? You don't think that we have reasons and logic? And it takes a lot of tension, a lot of growth. Overall, it's worth it, but it's been a journey. So that's kind of what's changed in a nutshell, even though that was a long answer.
No, I love it. I mean, we're former preachers and current preachers, sort of. So like talking is what we do. We got 99 problems and talking ain't one. But what I love that came out of, and it really came from both of you, is this idea of no longer having to be fundamental. I think that's probably the greatest freedom, which means like, I no longer feel that itch to have to agree. I no longer feel that that itch to have to make myself fit in. I no longer feel that itch to have to know, which gives me such a great bit of freedom now, because it now means what this is one of the most beautiful things for me. I don't have as many opinions as I had before. Like, I had a whole lot of opinions about shit that I really didn't even care about. And now it's just like, no, I don't care about that. I don't have why would I have an opinion about that? That has been very freeing for me. Because before, like, it was always, well, what do you think about this, pastor? Well, pastor such and such and them are doing this over there at day church. What do you think about that? You know, or pastor, this new artist just did this and they put this in their song. What do you think about that? And I'm like, why should I have opinions about all of these things? So that was one of the things that was definitely different for me. But then also, Kyle, that being honest, right? Of just like, I'm just going to be authentically me. I no longer feel the pressure to become all things to all men so that I might save some. I'm just going to be me. Some people are going to like me, some people are not, and I'm okay with that. That has been that has been freeing for me. It's allowed me to draw stronger boundaries. It's allowed for my no to be stronger, for my yeses to be healthier, just for me to approach the world as it is. And so that's been freeing for me. For both of you, was your transition to where you are now, was it more intellectual? Was it emotional? Was it moral? Or was it relational? So did you learn something that said, ooh, I need to change? Or did you experience an emotional situation? Or was it relational? Where though I'm hurting somebody that I love, or maybe even moral. What would you say was your change? And when I say intellectual, like, was it biblical critique that led you out? What was it that led to your transition?
Yeah, I can start. Kyle's been starting, so I'll go first here. So for me, I was actually speaking at a conference in Denmark in 2016. Holy moly, it's almost been 10 years. That's crazy. I'm getting old, y'all. But I was speaking at this conference in Denmark, and I was speaking on, the main verse that I was talking about was John 10:10. I've come that you might have life and have it to the full. And I gave 10 talks basically around that verse. Obviously, different ways of viewing it, because I get boring the same verse every time. But it was around that. But then I was also, at different times I was going into different cities of Denmark, and I was thinking, this is a different culture. This is a different way of viewing things, and yet their life satisfaction levels are one of the highest, yet they don't look at Christianity the same way that I do. And then I'd go back and I would, preach, teach at night or whatnot. And I started to develop this cognitive dissonance. It wasn't as strong, actually, as much when I was there, but when I got back home. And I actually went to take these 10 messages that I had given in Denmark, and I wanted to make a book out of it. Each message would be a chapter. Basically, had the book written, just had to translate the audio to the book. And and as I started writing this book, I thought, I want people who are outside of my tribe to read this. I want them to see, because I had felt like this was good news. And I wanted them to read this. But then I started thinking, well, if I'm to put myself in their shoes, will this be good news? What if they can't believe that someone, resurrected from the dead 2,000 years ago? Is that really that bad? And am I going to damn them because they can't believe that? And I had to put myself in their shoes. And then I had to do my homework and really explore what I thought. So all that was a long answer to say it started with the intellectual. I had to, be honest, emotionally, I felt it. I mean, that conference in Denmark, it was a Pentecostal conference. I wasn't necessarily Pentecostal, but this conference was. I saw people, rolling on the ground, laughing, and all these things, and emotions were high,
Literally holy
but intellectually, it wasn't lining up. Now, just, I've already said a lot, so I'll go with this. It took me about 2 years to come to realization that I didn't agree with fundamental Christianity in an intellectual way. But then there was the emotions. The emotions will follow the mental. That's why having good wisdom is so important. The emotions follow. And I went through this stage where I said, all right, God of the Bible or Christianity, I don't intellectually believe in this. But hey, if you're there, let me know. Logic aside, I'll throw it all out. Let me know. Give me something here. And then I didn't feel that. And I had to wrestle that emotionally. And then you go for me, and I feel for anybody, going through any of this, when you deconstruct in ways, that means a lot of times the relationships that you once had, they change. And that can bring on what I think is the most important. It can change the relational aspect. And there's a lot to be said for that. But I've already said a lot. But it started intellectually, but it affected all the other areas. So
I can see that.
What are you thinking with it?
Yeah, for me, it started intellectually as well. It was, once I started thinking, people always ask me, how did I get here? Like, what happened? And my short, simple answer is I started thinking. I pulled in that aspect of myself that I had buried for so long, because when I was a child asking questions and thinking about this stuff, and it didn't make sense to me as a child, I was told that I can't think and I shouldn't think. I only needed to have faith, and I just had to believe. So I put aside my critical thinking in that regard and just focused on just trying to believe this stuff. But eventually, faith failed. Faith failed incredibly to me. And I needed something more. I needed something better than faith. So I went to look for it in intellect. I looked for it intellectually. And every time I looked at a story intellectually, I said, damn, this shit don't make no sense. so I can relate. I couldn't find it there. So the next thing for me was morally, can I stand in front of people knowing I don't believe this anymore? Knowing this has never helped anyone that I've ever really seen. Can I keep standing in front of people doing that? And I could not do that any longer. Yeah. So it was the intellect to the morality of it that kind of got me away.
No, I like that because, I wrestled with the intellectual part of scripture for a very long time. And I just saw some people talking about some of the things in the chat. One of them that I remember coming across was starting to study Canaanite mythology. That was like one of the hardest things in the world for me, because I'm like, wait a minute, I know all these people. I know all of these characters in Canaanite mythology, and they've been presented in a totally different way. And so, because at that moment now, biblical history had a prehistory. There was a prehistory to Israelite history, which now gave new context, new color on the whole story. And as a sociologist, it was just like, oh, I see the bigger picture now, and I can't pretend that I don't see it. But I had been wrestling with stuff like that for a while. But it was definitely that next arc of that moral emotional arc of saying, for me, it was realizing that my biggest goal as a pastor, as a leader of a church, is to preach a message every Sunday that leads people to heaven, right? That makes people say, I choose Jesus and I want to serve him. And by that time, I had been pastoring my church that was my second church, for nearly a decade. And so I had all of this data of me preaching the gospel, the so-called good news, and their lives not changing. The services were getting better, the experience was getting better, but their lives were not getting better. And that's where the struggle really hit for me. It was, why isn't this helping? And I had to ask myself like some really hard questions, like, well, Darante, because I was trying to put some good like self-help stuff in my messages, I was trying to put stuff in there like, hey, go get a budget and do your finances right, But at the same time, I'm also saying, trust in Jesus, depend on Jesus, don't worry about it. He has it. Cast all your cares on him, for he cares for you. And I realized I'm actually giving them a message that's making them more dependent. that's actually robbing them in many ways of their agency and their autonomy. And that was like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I can't contribute to this type of dependency. I cannot contribute to this rampant consumerism. I cannot contribute to telling people that there's this God who wants the best for them and who's watching out for them, and he has his hand over their lives and is keeping them covered, because then every time something bad happens in their lives, according to the narrative that I've given them, that must mean this God has withdrawn his hand. And when I start thinking about that and having to live with that, it's like, man, you're causing people real psychological trauma and you don't notice it because it's so freaking normalized. But once you begin to realize how much damage religious superstition does to people, especially, again, listen, I was a pastor in a poor community, right? In an impoverished community, and what I was preaching wasn't helping. And so ultimately that was the kind of like final crack in the concrete, if you will, is that I didn't want to be a part of anything that wasn't actually helping. It began to dawn on me that, oh no, I don't care if they go to heaven or hell or not. I don't know what those things are. I've never been there. I don't even know if they exist. But I do care if people's lives are getting better here on earth. And at that moment, what I could no longer ignore is that the religion I was a part of was not a positive contributor to people's lives actually getting better. We had really good propaganda around it. Oh man, we got so many people who said I was on drugs and the Lord delivered me and I've never touched drugs again. I tell you, most of those people lying, bro. That's how easy it is. Ain't nobody checking the stories. Ain't nobody checking those people's pockets. You just say it and it's true. But as for the pastors, no, I know about the relapses. As a pastor, no, I know about the people who said it on Sunday and by Monday was right back at the bar. No, I know it. And then came back Sunday and gave the same testimony. Came back the next week and gave the same testimony. So, no, I love that. It did get to that point where it was more like, no, number one, this isn't helping. And number two, some of this is absolutely harmful. Yeah. Man, I didn't expect us to go around there, but that's nice. See, that's what you do. That's what you do when you get us all in the room. So what was, now that we're there, my question is, do either of you remember your last prayer or request to God? Do you remember what that last conversation was like?
Wow.
Because I remember mine. I remember mine. Like I was riding in my car and it was simply like, it was something along the lines of, I'm not gonna, it was something along the lines of, I don't know if you're there or not, but I know that people exist. And I'm never again going to put you above people unless you show up. And so if you don't show up, this is kind of the end. And that was kind of like my last conversation with God or myself, shall I say.
Yeah, no, I think mine was similar in, I didn't always, well, I'll put it this way. The last couple months, so for me, so I mentioned that conference in Denmark is in 2016. And then I take about 2 years. I'm really exploring this on an intellectual level. And then the summer of 2018, I think I realized, in fact, right outside my house here in my driveway, I said to a friend, for the first time to anybody out loud, I said, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore, at least in the way that most would define it, But the prayer, you asked about the prayer. In the last couple of months, after I had realize it on an intellectual level, the prayer that I began to pray. And at this time, this song was popular, Say Something. And I'm going to read it here, but this was kind of my prayer over a couple months. I play this song. It says, say something. I'm giving up on you. I'll be the one if you want me to. I know this might be a love song, but I think you can kind of see the similarities.
I love it. Yes.
Anywhere I would have followed you. I mean, doesn't that sound like familiar in Christian language? Mm-hmm. Say something, I'm giving up on you. and I'm feeling so small. It was over my head. I know nothing at all. I don't know how that part relates to it, but it's part of the song. And it goes, and I will stumble and fall. And man, I was like, man, am I just stumbling and falling? I will still learn. I'm still learning to love. That was what this whole process was to me. I'm still learning how to be human, how to understand this world, this house, as I mentioned, I'm living in. I'm still learning to love, and I'm just starting to crawl. Like you said earlier, Darante,
Yes.
I'm trying to relearn how to walk, and I don't always know. And it was me, in a way, trying to practice humility of saying, you know what? If there is a God, I'm open, because that's a
Yeah.
lot of times people say, well, you just close your heart,
Come on.
and it's like, no, if you really understood the wrestling that I've gone through, that I would say that's one of the furthest things,
Yeah.
And I'm going to read this course one more time. It says, say something, I'm giving up on you. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. I'm sorry, God, and I will say, I still wrestle with this God question. I'm more agnostic in it. So when I say this is more towards a Christian type God, I still sometimes speak in the language of like an Einstein type Spinoza God, but that's a whole nother story. But it says, I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. This story worked for them and them and them. But is there something wrong with me? I mean, I have studied this book. I know it probably, and I'm not trying to brag, but I probably know it better than 99.9% of the people out there. And it's not working for me. Once again, this says, anywhere I would have followed you, say something, I'm giving up on you. And I'll read this part and I'll be done with this. It says, and I will swallow my pride. You're the one that I love. I still love this way of thinking. But I knew that if I wanted a better way of thinking, I had to move on. And then this last line here says, it says, you're the one that I love, but this says, and I'm saying goodbye, because it would be dishonest of me if I didn't say goodbye. If I just said, oh, I don't believe this doesn't intellectually, line up, but I'm going to keep getting up and preaching. I'm going to get up and keep on saying it's my life. It'd be dishonest of me. And so, look, I put it this way. Maybe it's a little bit of like my own version of Pascal's wager, but let's say there is a judgment day someday, and I don't think that there is. I don't see any evidence for it. Like, what am I going to do? Get up there and say, yeah, I just lied my whole life. I didn't really believe in you, but I did it, Or let's say that there is. And once again, I don't think that there is, but it'd be better me say, you know what? I didn't see the logic in it, but I guess I was wrong. I don't think that's the case, but I guess I had to be congruent and intellectually honest, and I had to say a lot of goodbyes so that I could say hello to a lot new rooms and new worlds. So that was kind of my prayer of the last couple months of that time in my life. But Kyle, what were you thinking with it?
I don't
go
think
ahead,
I've
Darante.
ever heard that the title of that song, but I think I've heard that song. Is that say something, I'm giving up on you? Is that how that goes?
Yeah, I'd sing it, but you do way better than I
Man,
do.
oh my
Yep,
goodness,
yep.
that is perfect. The lyrics like that, no, because that was where I was at. Say something, I'm out. I'm giving up on you. Kyle, what was it? What was your last prayer, if you can remember, man? Like,
I can't. I really had stopped praying before I stopped really believing in a God.
Yes.
I was always very. I'm very much of the. I need something tangible, right? So I grew up in a church where prayer was the Mecca. I mean, everything was about prayer, and we'd have these prayer lines, and we'd have these all-night prayer services. We'd have all this prayer. But I was also very much an observer. I'd be watching. So, the pastor said, we're going to pray for this thing and this, and God's going to do so and so. So you'd have my attention because I want to see something, and I would never see anything. And we would leave church, and somebody would say, oh my God, God really moved, and it was an awesome service. And the little boy was like, where? What did I miss? I stayed awake the whole service. I didn't see anything, kind of thing. So I was always very, very on the fence about prayer anyway. But I remember the last time I thought about praying. I was, when I had really decided to go inside of myself and do some self-healing. And I didn't know what that journey was going to be like when I started it. But when I went inside, you start digging up all this stuff and all of the years of depression and all the years of inner turmoil and all that stuff is coming to the surface. And man, I was really in a very dark place of,
Yeah.
I don't understand any of this stuff. This shit hurts too much, kind of a thing.
Mm.
And my programmed history was saying, pray, ask God to help you. My logic, my reason, my intellect was saying, but that's not going to help you. So that was the last time I thought about praying. The thought hit me to pray, but my logic, my reason, my intellect, all that stuff at this point had escalated above all that program stuff and said, that's not going to help you. Just keep doing the work you're doing. You'll be okay. Kind of a thing. So yeah, but I never really, I just, again, I wanted to see something and I never saw anything in praying.
Yeah.
And then it did make a lot of sense to me anyway. And back to something Joe talked about, that is, if there is a judgment day, I pretty much had come to the same conclusion of like, okay, well, open the books.
Yeah.
Play back my life. And I wanted to come see every time I was
Come on now.
begging and crying out to you to make yourself real. Come on, let's go see it. Go, and then we're going to shine the light on you and say, why didn't you answer? Why did you show up? Why did you reveal yourself? We got the tapes. I know how many times I did it. So that's how I was going to, that's how I see myself dealing with it.
Man.
If you're fair, if you're just, if you're true, then this is going to fall back on you, dude, because I did my part.
Oh, snap. No, that's like, yes. And, that actually kind of jogs my memory a little bit because I do realize that I had stopped praying about 2 years before I actually fully deconverted. So even before that last prayer, and I wrote about it in a song maybe about 5 years ago. I was working with another little group. And I wrote a line about my wife, and it was, I used to pray for someone like you so I could pray again. And that was in reference to a period in my life where I was acknowledging that I had just stopped praying completely because I was like, it ain't helping. Like I've been praying for like things my whole life and ain't nothing happened before. And so I do get that. I feel like that should be a whole conversation among former ministers about like, when did you stop praying? Let's have that conversation. Mistress Monica, thank you so much for this $20 super chat. She says, they say God knows our heart. If this is true, then God knows what it will take to make us believe in him. That's it. I no longer feel bad for not believing the Bible is the word of God. Deconstructing is about the journey. Again, and I say something or I'm giving up on you. That's where it is. Like it's I think the moment you kind of force yourself to take the relationship seriously, and that's what you kind of just heard Kyle doing. Like, no, if there is a judgment day, then we're going to take it seriously. You allowed me to live my whole life without you intervening. That's what I think. Man, that's really good. I think a lot of us deconstructed when we started taking the relationship seriously. It's as a person who's had to counsel people going through divorce, some divorces happen when the people start taking the relationship seriously. When one person says, you know what, I've been kind of just tolerating this for a really long time, and I cannot tolerate you not being present anymore. I cannot tolerate you not answering your phone when you're not here. I cannot tolerate being ignored by you. I cannot tolerate crying and you don't even come over and embrace me. I cannot tolerate living this life by myself. And so it ends up getting to that place. Say something, I'm gone. Or you get like Kyle, where you just wake up one day and you say, you know what? No, I'm not even going to ask you to say nothing, because if you could have said something, you would have said something a long time ago. So peace. You're going to come home one day and my bags are going to be packed and I'm going to be gone. And that's what happened for a lot of us. But no, I love that. Excuse me. I love that, because that is a real feeling. The moment you start taking the relationship serious, if God doesn't show up, that is the end. It's say something or I'm giving up on you. That's the final draw. Man, and
my mom, who is a super Christian, she loves Jesus more than she probably loves her children, and I think that's very sad. But I love my mom, and that's just that's probably never going to change.
Yeah,
she probably won't admit that, but we see traces of that from time to time. She doesn't treat us badly or anything like that, but There's certain aspects over the years where we kind of wanted a little bit more from our mom. And, if it came between us and Jesus at times, it was, I got to stay faithful to Jesus kind of thing. And again, I'm not saying that in a disparaging way to make her look bad or sound bad, but just giving a little insight to what I'm about to say. Well, when I started deconstructing and becoming very vocal about it, one thing my mother had said, she said, God showed me a dream of you years ago that you were going to get mad at him and turn out this way. And I said, really? He showed you a dream a long time ago. So that means he knew I'd get to this point and did nothing to stop it.
Come on.
Because all I was asking for was him to show himself, make himself known. I need something. I need something to keep going. I need something. So he let you know years ago I was going to get here, and he did nothing to stop me as far as giving me what I needed. And it wasn't money. It wasn't fame. It wasn't the big stage. It wasn't the big church. It wasn't to be on TV. It was, I need something from you. I've put every ounce of belief I have into this, and I've done this with 10 toes down for as long as I could. And I'm at such a point right now in a place where I don't have anything else to hold on to, because as I said earlier, faith had failed. Faith said, I can't sustain you any longer. I can't live off faith anymore. Mm-mm. So if that God knew this was coming, showed someone else that this was coming, but chose not to do anything when all I was asking for was it to reveal itself, then that told me this God didn't care about me. Didn't care about me. So then that was even easier for me to disconnect. Now, my mother didn't see it that way, but still,
Oh, man. I have so many flashbacks from the time I got started, in my younger teenage years, to my young adult years, to my older years, where that was probably, out of all of the prayers I ever prayed, were the most persistent prayers. Mm-hmm. God, show your face. God, reveal yourself. And what I'm hearing in that now is that's our way of admitting that we're not seeing it, but we're still trying. That's our honest, like, hey God, I don't get it, and I'm trying my best here, but it would be a lot easier if you just say something. It could be a whisper right now, like, bruh, you can just blow on the back of my neck and I'll just say it was you. Just do something, because I think what we're experiencing at that moment is that break with, like, this doesn't feel real. And I don't want to walk away from it because I've been told you're the most important thing in the world. But I'm living this in real time. I'm praying for people in real time. I'm counseling people in real time. And it doesn't seem to be the way the Bible says it's supposed to be. So, bruh, can you help me out just by saying something? And then, just speak one word and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Just one
more small little memory.
Yes.
In 2008, I was really breaking back then. I was really breaking back then. 2008, my predecessor, he used to always say, if you ever want to get a hold of God, you've got to spend 3 days and 3 nights in prayer. That's how you really get a hold of God, as he used to say. And he had done it a few times, and he would talk about it throughout the course of his preaching over the years. So I always had that in the back of my mind, right?
Wow.
So I had time. I just gotten laid off from the mortgage industry, and so I had time. Man. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to lock myself in my room for 3 days and 3 nights. I'm not going to come out, and I'm going to just stay here and quote, God's presence for these next 3 days and 3 nights. And God's going to show up, and he's going to talk to me and let me know what's next and all this other kind of stuff. And for 3 days and 3 nights, I stayed locked in my room. I didn't open the windows. I didn't open the curtains. I left it practically dark. I just had soft music playing in the background. And for 3 days and 3 nights, it was just me in that room. And after the 3 days and 3 nights, I had to convince myself that God showed up.
Yes.
By by, saying, well, I heard this song inside,
Yep.
I heard this scripture, I had to convince myself that God showed up. And, and I look back on it now and think, what a fucking idiot that was. But, like, you should have just come to your senses a lot sooner. Like, he wasn't there, But that was, what we did to convince ourselves to keep going. We had to manufacture a move of God of some kind just to make ourselves feel justified for what we were doing and believing.
Can I add for a quick minute
please.
here? All right. Yeah. So, according to the Apostle Paul, which, I say according because we don't have the original writings, he says that, it comes down to three things. Three things remain: faith, hope, and love. And I actually think he's somewhat right in that he says, and the greatest of these is love. And I know I sound, hippie, whatever, saying that. But then that would imply that the next are hope and faith. And he doesn't really give an exact order. And I would say yes to hope, because that's what good love does. A greater gospel produces hope. But then when you get to this thing of faith, and this is what when I'm listening to both of you talk, this is what I'm hearing, even in myself. If my goal is to love and I base what that is off of faith, that's going to lead me down a lot of dangerous ways. If I just have faith, I don't see the logic. So maybe a better way of saying it would be, faith, or a better way would be saying love and hope and reason rather than faith. If I'm just taking stabs at things like I fasted, I think I heard God, but I have faith that I did, and that happens. But we might think that, but what happens then if we say, you know what, next time I need to do 4 days because I'm going off of faith. If I'm faithful, next time I'll do 5 days. Or in the case of Abraham and Isaac, maybe God wants me to sacrifice my son. And I know that's extreme, but there's stories of that. And there's these, even these small things. I remember one time, the church I used to minister at, just a mile down the road here. And I remember this lady coming in, we were going to do a prayer gathering. And she said to me, she goes, Pastor Joe, I've just been praying about it all day. And she said, I just don't know if God wants us to leave the doors open or closed. And I was just like, what? Like, I even knew. But it's like she wasn't using logic. Like, it doesn't matter, She's going off this faith feeling. And then she came back to me and she goes, I don't know if we should do 4 songs or 5 songs. And I was just like, and I give these are little examples, but we can see the way that people are hurt. If we just go off of faith, what a book says, it might mean that women are lesser than.
Come on now.
It might mean that homosexuals don't have a place at the table, and what they do in closed bedrooms is not just okay, but it's good.
Come on now.
And so when we just go with this faith thing, and that's I don't know what made me think of that, but I'm going on a tangent, but to me that seems the difference is true love uses the tools that we have, which should be logic, and that's the unfortunate side of dangerous faith. So thanks for letting me go on a tangent. I don't know what made me think of that, but something.
I think that's a great point, because it's like faith is it's like a prerequisite to gaslighting yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because, I remember doing it to myself constantly. I mean, that is perfect examples from both of you from the 3 days. And literally, if the curtain moves, that might have been God. I'm going to make myself say, okay, that was God. If a song comes in my heart, if a good idea comes to my mind, well, maybe that was God. And then the problem is, what you just so eloquently pointed out, Joe, is that really does disconnect us from cause and effect. And so now you end up, stressing out over small things or not knowing what to do because you haven't heard a God give you a definitive answer. And then you forget to look you just pay attention and then you make the right decision based off of what you're looking at. I remember even when I was a pastor, because I noticed this as a pastor, right? I had people who needed to hear from God to help volunteer. It was like, hey, we need some people to help open the doors. Well, Pastor, I don't know if God has called me to be an usher. You need a burning bush to be willing to open the door for somebody?
Yeah. I laugh because I've heard that
Yes.
same thing. We're doing a soup kitchen, and that's just not my calling.
That's not my
Come
call.
on now.
It's like, whoa. But that's what that type of faith-centric living does. And I've never heard an argument against faith so good, but that really is good. Because that's what it's that slippery slope, man, where like I'm not looking for evidence, I'm not looking for reason, I'm not looking for rationale. And at that moment, you really don't know what the hell you're looking for. So anything will do. Anything can be a sign, which maybe I should have just did that and just been like, oh, he didn't call you. Well, he just called me and told me. So now you've been called, because when a person is operating off faith, you just say whatever the hell you want to say. I was using my superpowers wrong when I was a pastor, I guess.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Now we kind of crossed this a little bit early in the conversation, but one of the things I've been increasingly clear about with Bridge City is that though I am an atheist, unapologetically, Bridge City is not an atheist community. It's not a community for atheists. It's a people community. And part of the reasons why I'm that way is because I don't want to build a tribe. I don't want to build a camp. I want to build a community that doesn't have these purity tests to join. Are you atheist enough? Are you secular enough type of thing? So my question to you is how do the two of you relate to the atheist label itself? Does it feel sufficient for you, or does it leave out too much of who you are? Where do y'all stand?
Well, I heard Joe say he's more agnostic.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't like labels. I hate labels. I absolutely hate labels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not willing to put myself in any category. I'm a human being. That's the only label that I'm willing to hold on to, because I'm not a cat, dog, lion, or
Come on now.
I'm a human being. So I'm not black. I'm not a male. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm a human being. And
Wow.
I try to keep everything to that extent. So although I don't believe in any version of any God that's been presented to us, I know that puts me in the category of an atheist.
Yeah.
I still agnostically, don't know if there is something.
Yeah.
And I would be open to the idea of, if something did reveal itself in a known way to us as God, then I would say, yep, that's God. But it would stop for me there. It would stop there. Yep, that's God. And I just keep going on and living my life. So, that's kind of where I am. I don't like the title at all.
I like that.
I don't like to be labeled it. I don't suggest that I am. I don't say, I'm an atheist. I'm a proud atheist. I'm a kind of thing. But I guess I fall in that category if someone's trying to define it.
I like that. Yeah. Joe.
No, that's really good. I like what you said. I'm a human being. Just just off the cuff, flying, by seeing my pants here. I kind of frame it like this. Okay, I guess two things. One is just be honest.
Yeah.
If you're an atheist, like I've said, I don't even want to say, oh, that's okay. I want to say, that's good. You're being honest. If you're agnostic and you're like, look, I just really don't know, just be honest. And then finally, if you are, a theist or a deist or a pantheist or whatever, be honest. You believe in something, that's fine too. That's good. Now, I will say, in that measure, if you are just living off of like this faith and not reason, then it can become dangerous. If you're just going with, oh, this is what it says in a book 2,000 years ago, I'm just going to go with that. Well, now you're leaving your brain at the door, and it's not just that you're being unintellectual, it's that you are putting a barrier between yourself and loving action. And that's the most important thing. So the second thing I would say with it, I'll frame it this way. I kind of look at atheism or agnosticism and all these things. I look at them, there's negative freedom and there's positive freedom. And we need, negative sounds like a negative word because it's negative, but we do need both, And so a negative freedom is I have a freedom from, fundamental controlling religion. I have a freedom from that.
Yeah.
That's great. But what if I made that everything about my whole life and everything that I did? Don't get me wrong. That's 50% of it. That's good. Imagine I have been in prison for 20 years and I get out of prison and I say, I have a freedom from prison. And then I just stand right outside that prison door. And every day I say, I have a freedom from prison. I have a freedom from prison. Hey, you, I got a freedom from prison. I got a freedom from prison. Okay, that's fair. That's 50% of it. And there are times where there are justice issues where that is very, very important. I get that. But it's also, would you be putting yourself in a whole nother prison by staying right outside of that wall? If you never grow beyond that, if you never go and do something with your life, you never see beauty and art and meaning and love and compassion and kindness in the world. Have you ever left the prison? And so for me, it's not just a freedom from. That's essential. That's a foundation. I don't have to adhere to a book that was written 2,000 years ago and have viewpoints that are harmful. I can take the good from them, but I can build and I can say I have not just a freedom from, but a freedom for, a positive. So I think, Kyle, what you're saying, I'm a human being. And that's, to me, like that's 50% of it, that freedom for, what do I want to be about, and maybe it's even bigger than 50%. More than any of those labels, I want to be known as a person of love. I want to be known as a person of kindness. I want to be known as a person of inclusion, that I'm not just someone who is angry at God, because honestly, I'm not. I have no anger build up,
Come on.
It's hard to have anger in something that I don't necessarily see, see the reasons. I wonder and I explore it, but I guess once again, my thing is just what label do I have to do good? And I'll end it with this. Thomas Merton once said, and I know this sounds hippie-ish again, but he says, love is an intensification, a wholeness, a fullness of life. And when I'm aiming to do good in this world, and however that is for wherever you're at, wherever you're learning this or listening to this, man, that's the intensification. That's the fullness. That's the wholeness. That's, as Darante, a great person, has once said, that's the greater gospel. All right,
that's
I'll end
it.
with that.
Yes.
I feel like we're a little preacher mode there. Sorry, y'all.
Come on, let's go.
Can I chime in real quick about the
yes, sir.
thing? If Christians are listening to this, and I hope some are, because I think that wherever you are in the scope of your beliefs, I think it's good to hear other perspectives about things. One of the things that kept me closed off for so long is that I would only listen to things I believed. But we don't hate God, as Joe was saying. We're not angry with God, as Joe was saying. We stopped believing in the version of God we were presented. We just said that I just don't believe in that anymore. So I don't hate it. I'm not angry at it. I was angry at myself for betraying myself for so long, for following a path that I knew I didn't really want. I was angry at me. So I had to deal with my own internal anger of, God, how could you do this to yourself? Why did you abandon yourself? Why did you abandon your goals and your dreams and your passion, your pursuits? I had to deal with that, but it was never anger at a God or anything like that. So I think that Christians should know that, because that's the very thing they always attack us with. Oh, you're just mad at God. I'm not. I just don't believe in that God. I'm not mad at it. I don't think it's real. So to hate or to be angry at something you don't think is real would kind of reflect back on me that maybe my marbles aren't all the way here.
Oh man,
So
and that's so good, because it is true. Like we're not mad at God for the same reason we're not mad at Thanos, for the same reason we're not mad at any other villain, and any other.
Exactly.
And a lot of times people can misjudge the work that we do. They can say, well, you're doing this because you're angry at God. And that's always a little unfortunate to me, because it's like, especially looking at our work, it's very clear that the focus is people. So it's like, no, we're not doing this because we're angry at God. We're doing this because we have such a profound love for people And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we've been predispositioned to pay attention. That's a part of being a minister, is paying attention to folk, and like coming out on the other side, you're actually able to pay attention with your eyes wide open now. You're not having to pay attention through the filter of theology or through the filter of doctrine. You actually paying attention to what actually harms people, what actually helps people. That becomes like, that's why we talk. That's why we keep sharing information, because it's like, no, we don't want people to be out here living what we've actually lived. And you know, from what we've seen, like we've just seen how harmful this can be. And what I love about each of us is none of us go out of our way to find Christians and say, hey, change your mind. That's not the work we do. We're not we're not counter evangelicals. You know, we're not necessarily, you know, putting our tents up and saying, hey, you need to deconvert today, and here it is. It's more so for the people who are looking for it, who can find it, and hopefully find content that says, man, that actually resonates with me. It gives us freedom. And just kind of going back to the question about the label, that was the very first reason that I started openly using the identification, was to let other people know that, hey, this is normal, this is acceptable, especially as a Black person, that this is acceptable, this is normal. But at the same time, I've also noticed that, like, oh man, we can get stuck there. We can get stuck in that label, in that identity, in that container. And it's like, no, that's not the goal. That's atheist is not a finish line. It's not the target that we're trying to get everybody to get to. Some of us will land there. Many of us will land in all different types of places. There are different philosophies, different metaphysical ideas about the universe. And ultimately, to me, like, it don't really matter. If people want to believe things, it's kind of like what Joe mentioned earlier. I may not come to the conclusion that they come to, but I know enough about the world we live in that I could see how other people would come to the conclusion. I might even see some of the steps they missed to get there, but I can see how they could get to that conclusion. So our goal doesn't necessarily become to go out there and convert everybody to atheism or agnosticism or anything else. The goal is to platform the possibility of just being honest, to platform the possibility of just living your life authentically. And watch this, when you break away from that having to be a part of a tribe thing, it actually kind of destroys or breaks down this need to convert. Because then it's like, no, what you see about the world is what you see about the world, and what I see about the world is what I see about the world. What bothers me a lot of times is even in atheist space, we're often trying to push our conclusions on other people. So somebody says, you know, well, I don't believe in God. Well, you have to believe in a God. Well, I do believe in a God. Well, it's ridiculous to believe in a God. And it's just like, well, why do you have to have an opinion about what somebody else does at all? Like, I hope we can get back to that place where we can live our lives honestly and stop trying to live our opinions vicariously through other people. And unfortunately, that's what those labels do sometimes. So thank you both for your answers on that. That's just beautifully said. Yes, go ahead.
Do we have time? If I could add, you know, the community that I lead, awesome. The community that I lead, I appreciate that we will say that we call ourselves a values-based community. The difference is we're not an atheist community. We're not an agnostic community. We're not a Christian community. We're not even a humanist community.
Yeah.
We're a values-based. And so what that means actually in action is that we have these certain values that we ask people to I guess to adhere to, at least when they're in our space, you know, and it's that we're guided by love, that more than so we come together to grow in wisdom, that we have humility, that we have empathy, kindness and inclusion would be another big one. And so people have there's people in the community who believe in God. And to that I say, that's not just okay, that's good, because once again, you're being honest. And there's some who don't, and they're being honest. But what we come together to focus on is how can we come together to live a more loving life, because we're better together than we are apart. One other phrase that we use is we say, let's see if I get this right. We believe that what you do is way more important. I'll say way, way, way more important than what you believe. And so people have their different beliefs. And if you believe in a God and that gives you some, hope that when you look up, you say, hey, this had to come from something. All right, cool. I get that. But is it making you a more loving, inclusive person? And now it does have the danger of saying, oh, if I'm going to go a certain book, but you get what I'm saying? It's what we do. And that's the more important thing. And so I just think that's been vital to us being an inclusive community.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. And again, that's kind of going back to that whole idea, like, we can have more people sitting at the table. It's looking for the way to become the best way to be inclusive is to try to be non-exclusive, is to try to identify what are things that we're doing that are intentionally excluding other people. And especially with the work we're doing with Bridge City now, that's something I'm always mindful of, is like, no, I don't want anybody feeling like they have to see the world like I see the world in order to be a part of this community, in order to belong to this community. With these big ass glasses, you never gonna see the world the way I see it. Okay, we're gonna always be looking at two different things. But like, and nor did I even want that. I didn't want that that purity test policing culture to even show up. Like we used to have a big presence on Discord, and I shut it down because people were confusing community with control. And it's just like, no, we exist together. It became like, no, if you don't do this, you're not one of us. Or if you do this, you're not one of us. And it's like, whoa, number one, we all fucking strangers. Let's act accordingly. You don't know anybody like that. Don't do that, please. But sometimes that's what labels breed. You feel like you got to keep people within the parameters of the identity. And what I love about the work we're doing now is like, no, I don't know you well enough to control the way you show up in the world. I don't know you well enough to tell you what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing. And by starting the relationship there, I'm actually robbing myself of the opportunity to actually get to know you, because the version of you that I'll actually end up meeting is going to be the policed version. It's going to be the version that you had to lock into a cage in order to be accepted here. And I'm like, when we do that, we rob ourselves of reality. When we do that, I'm not getting to know the real person, and the real person is not getting to show up as themselves. And so we have this thing at Bridge City that we're aggressive about letting people show up as themselves, even when they're aggressively weird. And we have some aggressively weird people in our community. I am one of them. And so we let people show up the way that they want to show up, whatever their wild, crazy beliefs are, because I still have some wild, crazy beliefs. Beliefs aren't just about religion. I got crazy beliefs about people, So we all got wild, crazy beliefs, but the only way we're ever really going to work through the nuances of our reality is to be able to deal with it in reality. And we can't do that if we're forcing people to pretend when they show up. So it's a really big thing for me of getting away from performance culture. Like, you don't have to perform to be accepted, and getting away from that pretending culture. I want people like, no, if you believe in Thor, show up. One of our favorite members in our community, which is in the chat right now, is Dark Light. He's going to make it clear every time he shows up, hey, I have imaginary friends and you can't stop me. And guess what? We don't try to stop him, because he doesn't do any harm. He has an actual valuable voice in this community. He has great ideas, and he's genuinely a cool guy. But if you stop at, well, he's not my label, so bam, end of the line, you rob yourself of humanity. So thank you both for sharing that. I didn't mean to stay in that long, but that got good. Okay. So I gotta ask this one. I just pulled it up a few minutes ago. What personal grief did you have to work through in order to keep caring about people after deconstruction? Was there personal grief that you had to go through? And Kyle, I know you kind of mentioned a little bit of it by saying like you had to grieve just who you had allow yourself to become during that time. So if we can sit in that for a moment, and I'm trying to think for myself. I know for me, there was a lot of that of having to deal with like, dude, you believed a lot of stupid shit for a really, really long time, You judged people by those things that you believed. you exercised way more control in people's lives than you really had a right to. Your opinion went way further. So I think the grief for me was grieving the person who had done it wrong for so long under the guise of scripture, and regaining the courage to even believe if I was capable of doing it right now. Like if the Bible had you doing this wrong for so long, how can you even trust that anything you have to say is of value or is actually helping people now? Did y'all have anything that y'all had to grieve like that to still be able to show up and be present for people? That's a hard one, ain't it? It's I'm sorry.
If I'm understanding it correct, and actually maybe could you read the question one more time, just so I make sure that I am. I think I am, but
yeah. Just what personal grief did you have to work through in order to keep showing up and caring for people after deconstruction?
Yeah, I would say for me, a phrase that comes to mind is choosing to see the world through rose-colored glasses, even though they're broken.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's seeing the good as well as the not good. It's seeing, all the beauty of the picture, of the painting. And I look actually at my days within ministry and Christianity. I look at it pretty fondly up until the last couple. And the last couple were hard because, if you have a seat at the table, it can be really, really good. But if you're questioning, you can't share that with, at least in fundamental religion, you can't share that. That's difficult. So personal grief would be, I think if I'm being vulnerable right now and as honest as I can be, there's a lot of good things, but there's also times where I thought, did I waste some time?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that I kind of figured things out when I was somewhat younger, but did I waste time? And I can look back and, I worked with the Salvation Army for a long time. And I like to think that, we did a lot of good things, helped a lot of people in difficult situations. But I also have to think about, if I'm being fair and honest with myself, how many gay people we told that they are wrong.
Yeah.
And basically, we might not have used this word, but basically said, this lifestyle is abomination.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe how many people did we keep from loving relationships that could have been helpful to them? So I think personal grief is just, every day we're dying. Every day is a small death. It's the death of a day. But the best way to celebrate the life of that day is to live it right. And so to look back and say, hey, there was ways I was living right, and I give myself grace because I was doing the best that I knew how to do at the time with the way I had been taught. But I also can say, I wish I knew better because I would have lived that day a little bit different, and the harm that I caused within myself and maybe within others. So I think overcoming those personal griefs, and the truth is that there's still residue. There's still trauma, whether in all that we do, whether it's because of fundamental religion or whatever different things. And that's where there can be such beauty and good, yet there can be, ugliness. And that's trauma that we're healing those wounds, we're treating them, but a lot of times they're still there. And I still have that. And there's still tension, What do you do with, for example, what do you do, personal grief? What do you do with relationships?
Yeah.
People that you love dearly. But they also go to places and support places that say, at the end of the day, you're going to go to hell. Now, they might give an answer that says, oh, that's up to God. That's, but still, they have some of these, so I guess maybe what I'm getting at is, there's still grief, I wish I could sit here and say all is good, but
No,
it's
I
a
love it.
balancing act, So I don't know how clear that was, but
No,
that's
it's
just what came to
beautiful.
mind for me.
It's honest, it's authentic. Kyle, you want to follow up on that?
I don't know if I had to grieve much about, how to make the transition to treat people better, because if I did any grieving, it was kind of in the same category, Joe, and you had already talked about Darante. I think about how I acted, how I treated people. I always consider myself to be a nice, kind person, but in those early years, I was a religious asshole, and the people I cared about the most at that time, my sisters and my brother, because they weren't living up to my standard at this young 20-year-old religious zealot, because they were younger than me and still wanted to experience somewhat of a life that they didn't have the freedom to experience growing up in the Christian cage of a home we lived in. I really treated them very badly, and started to, really look down on them. These human beings that I lived with all these years, and we had been through so much hardship together. I was treating them like they didn't exist and they didn't matter, because they weren't living a holy life like I was aspiring to live to at that time. And it got really dark between me and my sisters and my brother for a while, because, I just felt like I couldn't relate to them any longer, because now I was here. I was holy. I was righteous. I was the man of God. And they weren't trying to do anything like that. And, we look back on it today and we laugh about it. And one thing they told me, they say, it's so good to have my brother back,
Wow.
And if I have any grief or regrets, I regret that I wasn't at the club with them back then. Because they got some pretty funny ass stories of things that happened in the club that I don't know nothing about.
No, that's super real. Like I know, and Britt has joined us, so I'm going to pull her in just a moment. But I know one of the things that I had to go back and do is for the people who were members of my church and members of my staff, and that would still allow me to be in their lives as an atheist now. One of the things that I had to do then was just apologize for how much control I had in their lives, for how much depended on me. And because now it's just so uncomfortable. It's even icky to think about. Like you got to call me and ask my permission to be away from church or anything like that. You're running major decisions by me, like I'm an expert in those things. And I'm like, oh man, you're asking me who you should marry. And I'm like, I don't even know who you like. Don't be asking me those questions. But like, that was a serious thing, because that was one of the things that I did grieve in my deconversion, is just how much misplaced authority that religion placed in my hands. And it wasn't even just the weight of the authority itself, but it's misplaced responsibility as well, which did a lot of damage to my mental health while going through it. So thank you both for sharing that. I'm bringing Britt on the stage, who I'm super excited about having. Britt, welcome. This is the first time that I think I've ever had you on. And so this is literally our first conversation outside of email. We've been talking a lot. So we're going to shut up just a little bit since you just got here.
I was enjoying the conversation. I'm so sorry I'm late. I was actually at Easter Sunday church for me.
Yes. Hey, we're here for it. Well, if you can, tell us a little bit about who you are and the work you do. I know a lot of people in our community already know about you, but for anybody who doesn't know, let's talk about you a little bit, and then I'm going to bombard you with some questions afterwards.
Okay, really looking forward to it. Nice to meet you guys. So my name's Britt Hartley. I'm an atheist spiritual director. I'm finishing up my doctorate in theology, and I did a 2-year program in spiritual direction, but I'm also an atheist. So I was actually raised Mormon, and then deconstructed from Mormonism quite young. And then everybody tells you, like, you just have the wrong Jesus, just go to Christianity. So that's what I did. I just, all the Christians told me I just had the wrong Jesus. So I took that very seriously. I went to Christian theology school. And so my faith crisis was kind of in two parts. It was like my Mormon community and family, and then also actually lost my faith in not just Christianity, but also in God while in theology school, which is actually a really common thing to happen. It's like, Christian theology school is like an atheist pumping machine. Like, it's just pumping out atheists.
Yes.
So now my work, I have a book called No Nonsense Spirituality, and I do a lot of religious deconstruction coaching. And my focus, the thing that I'm kind of most known for is for people who are doing a religious deconstruction and end up in existential crisis, facing existential fears, nihilism. How do I build morality? How do I rebuild community? What is even the point of this? Meaninglessness. If you deconstruct to that place of existential crisis, that's kind of my focus in my work.
Wow. I love that. I love that so much. Okay, now something you said led me to a question, because you left Mormon Jesus. You know, Christianity is really like that. You just had the wrong Jesus.
Yeah.
So I actually want to open this up for the panel. How many of y'all went through different Jesuses? Because I did. You know, I started off with the very apostolic Jesus who, you know, women couldn't wear pants and they had to have their heads covered. And then I had the Word of Faith Jesus, who was like, hey, you can wear what you want to, but it needs to be clean and it needs to be like a suit, maybe, you know, with a little jacket on it. And then, you know, finally got the urban Jesus, and that was the Jesus who gets us, all of us, you know. So I went through different phases of Jesus, and I am curious to know, and I know this one is a little off topic, but it's my neurospicy, so we're going for it. So like for you three, did you go through phases of Jesus, or were you with the same Jesus the whole time? That's an odd one, isn't it?
No, it's a perfectly legitimate question. And for human development, especially when we talk about Fowler's like levels of faith, like you should move actually through a couple different versions of Jesus. Like that's completely healthy to do so. So for me, definitely, you know, had Mormon Jesus, was raised there. And then I moved pretty quickly. I had a mystic teacher pretty early on in my life. And so I moved to mystic Jesus pretty quickly. I never was like, I never did like evangelical Jesus or MAGA Jesus or any of those kind of Jesuses. So I moved over to mystical Jesus, you know, the Jesus of the mystics pretty quickly, and stayed with that for a long time before even that Jesus kind of fell apart for me.
Wow. Okay. So now I want to see a whole skit on different Jesuses, and MAGA Jesus.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen like the old YouTube video where it's like the evolution of dance? It could just be like the evolution of Jesuses.
I do one YouTube video on like Democrat Jesus versus Republican Jesus, and there are not two, like these are two really different people. Like they're very different people.
I need to check that out. That's so good. You know, Darante, I think it's a great question because there's just not one Christianity. You know, there is, there's more sex in the, not sex, but SC, well, that too probably, but SECTS sex in Christianity. You know, I've heard that there's more than verses in the Bible, you know, so there's Christianities. And so I think I was raised a little bit, my family came out of what was called the holiness movement. And it was people, you know, like, oh, you can't be seen in a movie theater because what if you're watching an R-rated movie, which Passion of the Christ is R-rated, by the way. But, you know, what if you're, you know, watching an R-rated movie, or, hey, you can't play cards because you could just be playing, skip bow, but what if you're gambling, you know, the women had to wear skirts and all that. And so it was very much rules-based. And even though my family had broken away from that, I think there was that residue. And so I remember growing up thinking that, you know, there's the angry Jesus, you know, Jesus, in the temple, and more so like an angry God. You got to do this and this and this, and life's boring, but if you want to make it to heaven, you know, you got to do this. And then it became more of my own, and I resonated with these main teachings when I was a youth, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, love your neighbors yourself. And that was my basis for a long time. And that really worked. I worked for the Salvation Army, did a lot of what we would call compassionate ministry. And I think like that was more like that Democrat Jesus, and that was good. But when you really get into it, if you start taking it seriously, you have to be honest, and you have to take the hippie Jesus, as well as, and I don't mean this to disrespect if anybody's listening who has somewhat viewpoints, but there's also the cult leader Jesus.
Yeah,
there's the Jesus
He's
that
there.
commands his disciples, who says, anybody who doesn't want who doesn't believe in me, bring them in front of me and kill them. Take the sword
Yikes.
to them. You mention that to many Christians today, and they say, "Oh, that's not in there," and it is. And so I think my evolution of Jesus was just being as honest and accurate as I can. And now I look at it as more of a historical, sociological Jesus.
Yeah.
And I can still take value from some of the teachings, but I also don't attribute it to, hey, this is the only place you can get this. In fact, a lot of his teachings were borrowed from other ideas, but that's kind of been my evolution of it.
I love it. Kyle, how many Jesuses did you have?
Well, I started off with the Jesus that I saw the adults around me with, and that was we were very Jesus centric. Darante, you mentioned pastoring and churching in a poor environment. That's kind of a little bit of my story too. So in the Black church specifically, where I grew up, it's very Jesus centric, because we need Jesus to help us get food. We need Jesus to help us get jobs. We need Jesus to help us pay our rent. We need Jesus to help us, keep our minds regulated. You remember that phrase?
Wow. Yes.
So it's very Jesus centric, and Jesus is going to do it. Jesus is our fixer. Jesus is our doctor. Jesus is our everything. And I grew up in a very, heavy centric dose of Jesus that way, which was very toxic and dangerous later on. And then as I started to evolve and grow into my own person and to a pastor, I didn't preach a lot about Jesus, talk a lot about Jesus. I try to keep my message just kind of centralized around faith and, trust God and that kind of stuff. But then eventually when I got into the word of faith a little bit more, then it became a little bit more about Jesus, but more so in the fact that Jesus had done all the work, and now let's just follow the path of Jesus and the model of Jesus. Just let's now rest and all that kind of stuff. And then it evolved into kind of like this: Jesus is the perfect example of God, and forget all this other stuff you read about God. Jesus is the perfect example of God, and oh my goodness. And I remember a friend of mine asking me, as she saw me start to kind of get away from the Christian beliefs, she said, do you ever think you'll never believe in Jesus? And I said, there's no way I would never stop believing in Jesus. I mean, everything evolves around Jesus. Jesus is the reason why the whole world exists. So I never thought I would get to that point. But then one day I came to that cliff and I said, every time I came to a certain point, I had a little bit of peace, but I still didn't have full peace. And it just was something about it that just didn't still sit right. And I kept going further. And then I got to the point where I said, I don't even believe Jesus was real, and more so to the fact of, if he was real, it's inconsequential to me whether he is or isn't. That's where I landed on the whole thing. So that's kind of how my movement with Jesus went from this person that was extremely, Jesus centric to someone who was like, man, probably wasn't even real.
You went from the spectrum of supreme Jesus to inconsequential Jesus, and like that's that definitely kind of goes with me. Jesus was the what was the old song? You're the center of my joy. All that's good and perfect comes from you. And then by the time I was in my word of faith, he was the lover of my soul. So literally, my whole life revolved around this character. But eventually, it became like, this whole time I've been trying to get proof that it all actually happened, and I ended up getting to, I don't care if it happened or not. I don't care if you lived or not. It's inconsequential. 2,000 years of history has happened, and it hasn't really meant much in a good way as far as I'm concerned. I want to circle back to the question that we kind of opened up with to give Britt an opportunity to answer it, and then we'll segue back into a few more questions before we roll out. But for one of the biggest questions has been like, leaving religion many people can just choose to walk away and, that's it. Don't look back, and to try to maybe stay silent to protect your own peace. The leading question today has been, why did we not do that? So that's my question for you, Britt. Why are you still helping people? Why didn't, after it all fell apart for you, why didn't you just fall into nihilism and just say, you know what, nothing matters anymore? I'm not going to use any of my talents to support people anymore. There's no reason to be kind. There's no reason to help uplift other people. Why are you still effectively preaching and effectively like helping people? What's going on here? You just can't stop yourself, huh?
Well, the honest answer to that is that I did go into nihilism and I did have that shutdown. And the reason that I speak about existential crisis is because that was personal to me. So for me, all of my morality and my meaning and my purpose, my identity, my community. I was in a Christian marriage. I was raised with Christian children. Literally every aspect of my life was built on the foundation of God. And so when God died for me, like for some people, and we know the personality type now, that if like freedom is a high core value for you, or openness is a high core value, or if you're rebuilding as you go, you really can just like walk out the door and be fine. For me, I had such like everything philosophically and practically in my life was built on this foundation of God. And so when I lost that, when God died for me, my brain really didn't know how to orient. I didn't have a story for what my life was. I didn't have any sense of like, why should I be a good person? I still was most of the time, but there were times that like at the self-checkout stand, I'm like, especially when you break down, like, because I kept deconstructing the concept of the self, deconstructing free will.
Yes.
And eventually end that rabbit hole was an existential crisis for me. And that's when you meet the 4 existential fears, which are death, meaninglessness, isolation, and fear of freedom. And so I spent about 2 years there where I was quite depressed, and it was an existential depression. And got did a lot of reading. Luckily, like being in philosophy and theology and history, I was able to find tools, and I was able to rebuild. How do you rebuild morality when you don't know if there's objective morality? There's ways to, but I didn't know how at the time because my foundation had just fell apart. How do I rebuild community? How do I rebuild rituals? How do I rebuild awe and states of transcendence? How do I rebuild good life and have a meaningful, purposeful, service-driven life? And for me, it was very much looking at religion, especially in my theology program, really as a cognitive technology. Like we have co-evolved with religion, and it has various psychological and social anchors for us. And so for me, it was really about how do I rebuild those anchors in my own life without having to know what ultimate reality is, like taking faith out of it and rebuild from that way. And it took some time, and it took a lot of tools. And then really I help people because it's inherently meaningful. Even if I die, even if there's no God, even if there's no meaning, ultimate meaning and purpose, and in 100 years, I'll just be worm food and all of that. Even if that's true, even if I can deeply be okay with that now. What I want to do today is it's so inherently meaningful just at the level of experience to help someone where I was previously struggling, to see someone where no one else was seeing me at the time. And it's meaningful. And I walk out of the shed after talking to someone who really feels seen, and it feels good. It's a great way to go about life. Even if I'm going to die, it took my brain some time to make that transition. And that's something that I help clients with today.
Oh my goodness. I love that.
I just want to,
yes,
I
please.
just want to say that's so good. And I can relate to a lot of that. That's good stuff. Right. Go ahead, Darante.
Very good.
Yeah, I think we were all shaking our heads like, yeah, that's it. Because I think one of the most powerful things that came out of that I heard was you get joy out of helping people feel seen. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons that we do all do this work, is that we realize that there are people out there whose voice is not represented, whose story is not represented. They don't feel like their story fits into the status quo. It doesn't fit into the norm. and therefore there is no room for their existence. And so when they see other people out here who are sharing and speaking a language that they can recognize, a language that they can resonate with, it helps them feel seen. And damn, that doesn't feel good for us to be able to see that. And that goes a little bit to what you were saying earlier, Joe, that it's not all altruistic for us, that we're not just doing this because it helps them. It also helps us to do good. You know, we get something out of that. And I've always said, kind of for me, I don't know what it was. And I would actually like to explore that. And maybe we will in this conversation or later on, but I didn't go through the nihilistic phase, but I do have friends that did.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know what it was. Cause like for me, and I don't know, maybe I was more of a nihilist when I was a believer. But when I came out, it was just more of the freedom. And it was like, no, it's just death and life. And in a world where death exists, life is kind of the point. I love the way you said it. To me now, life is inherently meaningful. Even if it doesn't mean anything, 200,000 years from now, it means something to me right now because I'm here to experience. I have children who are here to experience it. I get to experience it with a wife. I have friends, and I get to learn so much through their lives. And of course, at the end of the days, my brain, my machine will begin to go in reverse, and I'll lose access to many of these wonderful memories. But while I get to have them and have this experience, I get to share that. And it's even more beautiful than that, because even when I forget, my children won't. They'll still have those memories that'll be harder for me to access, but they'll have them. And for me, like, that means something to me. And it doesn't have to go away just because I lost my faith in a particular system. So I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. I have a question that I want to shop around to the whole panel. And this one is just because we were all in the work of ministry. How do you support people now without slipping back into saviorism or certainty, or feeling like you have to have all of the answers? Like, how do you do it? Kyle, that unlocks something in you.
Yeah. I love that question. I love that. And I love this space, right, that I'm in with that question, because one of the things that we probably all knew or felt is that we had to have the answers, right?
Yes.
So whenever someone came and said, hey, what about this? What do you think about this scripture? What is God doing this? What is God saying about this? We had to have an answer. And I didn't know this then, but when I look back in retrospect, I said, what a fool. But I didn't realize that even though I'm not a controlling person, I was really trying to control the narratives. Because when someone came to me and said, hey, what about this? What about this? I was trying to get them to see it my way. If they had a way, it didn't matter. If they had a view, it didn't matter. It's no, the Bible says this, and this is what God is saying here. This is what God is doing here. As a non-controlling person, I didn't realize I was trying to imprint upon them my way.
Yep.
So I love being away from that now, and I love not having answers for anyone now. I simply tell people, follow your instincts, follow your heart, whatever that means, wherever that leads you, because I don't know what is best for you, and I don't want to know what's best for you, and I don't even want to try to guess what's best for you. I'm still trying to figure out what's good for me. So,
no, that's freeing. I can absolutely relate to that. Again, that's why I had to kind of call my former staff and apologize for all of the control that I was exercising in their lives. And honestly, I didn't feel bad about the apology. I felt good because I was like, whew, that's a lot off of me. And now I run from control. I'm like, I don't want control in anybody's life at all. That's just way too much pressure. No one man should have all that power,
Yeah.
But no, I love that. I love that. I love it. What about you, Britt or Joe? Like for you, how do you protect yourself from slipping back into that saviorism, certainty, or that pressure to have everybody's answer?
Yeah, I'll go. So it was actually a while for me to break this cycle. So like the first thing I did when I left Mormonism, for example, is my brain was still like a religious brain. And when your brain is formed, especially in Western religion, we have this concept that like, this is the truth. And because this is the truth, therefore, this is the way to pattern your life. And so when I was kind of lost outside of Mormonism, my brain was still thinking, I'll just figure out what's true, right? Mormonism isn't true. I'll just figure out what the real Christianity is, and then I'll know how to pattern my life. And then, like Christianity ended up being like a very complicated thing, and I would keep trying to make systems of truth that I could build my life on, and then they would fall apart. And eventually kind of all fell apart for me. And so it was actually my mystic teacher that really helped me to recognize that, hey, the thing that you're doing is still a religious brain where you're seeking for truth so that you can build your life. What if there's a way to build a different ground we can build on, where you can pattern your life in an authentically meaningful way, even if you know nothing at all? And that was new for me. That was new for me. And I had to relearn how to do that. And so when I have clients now, especially because I work with Christians and Mormons, for Mormons, they have a prophet. For Christians, often they'll have a very charismatic pastor. They have almost this, they won't know that they're doing it sometimes, but they'll start asking me questions, really wanting me to become their new prophet,
Yes.
And I always, right? And I have to catch it in real time, and I have to push it back to them. Even though sometimes I want to answer because it's like a rabbit hole that I want to go off on or whatever. But in a podcast, I'll answer the question. But in spiritual direction, I never answer the question.
That's so
good. The question I ask back is, why do you need to know? Because because there's going to be something there. Usually it's an existential fear. I need to know because then I'll feel better if there's a sense of universal justice, or I'll feel better if there's this or that. So usually there's some fear or some anchor you're trying to hold on to when you're asking me these questions. And so then we'll just dig down a level. What's underneath the question that's making you so anxious? And let's just face that directly. And then we don't need to know. And then we can build our lives. For me, I make on my social media, I make no claims that I'm a materialist or a panpsychist or any of these other isms. I tell people every day, I don't know. The only thing that I do is there's tools to rebuild a life. There's different foundations that we can build on where we actually don't have to know, which is great. It allows me to have intellectual humility. It allows me to learn new things. I'm wrapping my identity around some new truth. I don't have it. Whatever it is, whatever ultimate reality is, I haven't the foggiest idea. And that is, and so, yeah, for me with clients, it's really pushing the question back to them and then also going a level deeper. What are they needing existentially through that question? And that's where we'll work more we'll work more directly.
I love that exercise because that is something that I am very averse to because I see it happening all the time. But what do you think about this? And that's a very great, why do you need to know? And it's like, why do you need to know what I think? Why do you need my authority to substitute your understanding and your clarity? And so that's a, it's like the 5 whys. Let's take that thing down. Let's break it down. Why do you need to know? And what's after that? Joe, did you have anything on this one?
Yeah. Well, first, that I love what you said there. For me, it's the thing of my biggest goal is to operate out of this place of love. And I think that the greatest way to get to that, once again, I know it can sound, like some sort of hippieism, but it's to use reason and logic and wisdom. Because reason and logic and wisdom, it can help us better understand what is good. Now, the careful part of that is what is good for me might not necessarily be good for you. And that's why I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, because you have to develop your own reason, your own logic, your own wisdom, so that you can see what is good for your life. Now, with that said, I do try to utilize a lot of science, because science is this collective of saying, hey, it's not necessarily prescriptive. A lot of social science isn't saying like, oh, if you do these things, everything will be good for you. You'll have well-being. It's saying, hey, we've studied these people, a large group, and the description is, this is what's worked for others. So maybe this is something that you should try, but for your exact context, it's really hard to know. And that's why you have to have your own intuition. I'll say it like this. I don't know. I have some writing here. Not that this matters. I used this a couple weeks ago for a thing, but I'll say sometimes is you're the author of your life, right? You gotta take the damn pen for yourself. and you got to write. And you can look at what the science shows, what the social science, psychology shows, and that's helpful. But ultimately, you're the one writing. And the way to write the best story, and I like, it doesn't come from the same etymology, but the roots are the same. They actually come from different languages, but author and authentic, the AUTH.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you want to write your own story, you have to be authentic. And so going deeper in some psychology, Carl Rogers, you have to be congruent. You have to know your values, what's important to you, what makes you come alive in this world, what you care about, what makes you angry, what makes you, want to stand up for justice. And you have to be congruent with that, because if you're doing it for me, you're writing my story and not your story. And that might work for a while, but at a certain point, it's not going to. You'll always be coming to me. What's the next chapter? What's the next chapter? So I lead a community, but I also do a lot of coaching. And that's really one of the big things, is helping people shift to learn how to best write their own story, and not mine. Writing mine is hard enough as it is,
Come on.
So that's how I try to. And I'll say one other thing, and I'll do this really quick. I also try to have awareness of that saviorism that I was taught in a way, and I still wonder if I struggle with it, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
and I think that my motives are pure, but I still have wondered sometimes, why is it that I want to be a public speaker and then I do this, and I think it's for good reasons, but if I'm being honest, it's something I have to check with myself often about. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I love that, because the saviorism is something that I have to draw a hard boundary within myself for, because it leads to scapegoatism. There's no way you can be the savior without being the scapegoat, and I've been on both sides of that, and I don't like either one of them. But what I hear from that, just really from all three of you, or at least where my mind goes, is thinking about that people have gotten incredibly uncomfortable with living in their own truth. They've become very uncomfortable with the idea of having to figure it out on their own. Like, it's so much easier to have a source of truth, someone who you can go to, and they're going to tell you, just do this, just believe this, just pattern your life this way. Here's the model, here's the 7-step plan. But having to figure it out yourself is much more complicated. And I think that's one of the things that I can at least speak for me, that religion kind of robbed me of for a long time. It made wanting to figure it out feel sinful. It made it feel prideful. And so you spend decades in this mindset that figuring it out on your own, having the answers is ultimately evil. It's sinful. It's just wrong. And then you deconvert from that, and now you still got to figure out where to go. And so I think it really is for people, even when we're not purposefully doing it. I think it really is easy for people to start using us as a source of truth instead of a point of reference. And it's wise of us to see that early and look for those safeguards and say, okay, am I just answering a question that I really don't even have the capacity to answer? You come to me and you say, hey, well, what should I believe about this? Honestly, sweetheart, I don't know enough about your life to be able to give you that question. I don't know enough of the variables, and I'm okay with that. But also giving those people the freedom to say, hey, it's okay for you not to know as well. Like, be easy on yourself. Like, I think that's, for me, I used to hyper focus over all different types of questions, and finally got to myself to the place, y'all know I'm an extreme pragmatist. It's like, if I had the answer to this question right now, how would it change my life? Like, what would it impact? What would be different? And if it doesn't really make any impact on my life, why am I stressing over this right now? But now I have to do that with the reverse. When people are asking me a question, because my anxiety will kick in when someone asks me a question about their life or about belief or about what they think they should be doing. My anxiety kicks in because there's a part of me that wants to be that answer. There's a part of me that wants to be that source of truth, have an answer for all men, be instant, in season and out of season, be all things to all people so that you might save some. There's a part of me that wants to be able to live up to the standard of I'm the dude with the answers. But then that's something that I've learned how to resist, because that's the illusion. The illusion is that there is someone who has all the answers. The illusion is that there is someone who has a God's eye view of past, present, and future. The illusion is that life is a fixed state and someone can predict it for you. And I think that's really my safety measure, is just remembering that perfection itself is an illusion, and that need to have a source of truth comes from the illusion of perfection. The moment I remind myself that is an illusion, I know it's impossible for me to have anybody's answer. Like for me, it's impossible for me to have that type of insight, that type of God's eye view, if you will, of anybody else's life. So I do my best to keep that pressure off of me, and to keep myself from giving people bad advice confidently. Which is something that's easy to do when you're a believer. When you're in ministry, it's really easy to give bad advice confidently. And if there's anything that I truly grieve about my life as a minister, it was that. How much horrible advice I gave very confidently. I mean, just, but that's me thinking about those things. Okay, so my next question, unless anybody else has anything to say.
If I could add really quick with it,
please. I felt it in the spirit.
What's that?
I said I felt it in the spirit.
That's right. Yep. Two things. One is I remind myself often. I embrace, as the philosopher Albert Camus, would propose, to embrace the absurd and the unknown. And that's brave. And to me, it's, if I know everything, and I encourage other people this, and maybe you're listening today, if you know everything, there's no more adventure to be had. I love adventure. And even maybe this question of what's next? Is there a God? Is there not? The best of my knowledge, according to science, we return to this universe, but hey, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, but what adventure that'll be maybe someday, or it'll be nothing, either way. And so I think that goes for all of life. To look at it, how we frame it is so important. To look at it as adventure. The second thing is, I think the way that my mind works, and I have to be aware of this, is that I want to know everything. I have to have all the philosophies that line up perfectly, but I have to constantly remind myself, I'll say, it's a mantra to myself, do the best you can in this moment. And I have to say in this moment, because, not once again to have some hippie feel good, thing to say, but I don't know all the answers, and I probably won't. But I'm alive in this moment. I'm a human in this moment. And that's what, where I try to lead a lot of people, is to embrace that uncertainty, find the adventure, find the exploration and the joy and the beauty that's within that. But all right.
Oh no, I love it.
I'm done rambling.
I say this is what happens when you get us together. Go ahead, Britt.
Right?
Yes.
Sorry, I have one more thing too before we move on.
Yes.
It's just such juicy stuff. I think it was a surprise to me at first when I was digging into existential fears, because we talk about freedom in America as if it's like this amazing thing, and freedom, you think that you want freedom, right? And we actually know from human nature that too much freedom is quite paralyzing for us, for our brains.
Yes.
And so we have one of our 4 existential fears is a fear of freedom. And so I think what happens sometimes in naive atheist spaces, especially when they were never religious, is they talk about religion as if it's just mind control or just power. And certainly there is that aspect. But you guys know, just like I do, that when you're working with people, even me when I'm working with atheists, it's like they want you to be that person, right? Because it's hard. It's hard to be a human. And if all the cult leaders and all religious leaders and political leaders died today, we think that we would be free, but in actuality, what we know about human nature, we would recreate them tomorrow.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep.
And so I think we all ended up in this similar place where we realize there's a balance here, where if you are someone's guru, that's probably going to be problematic because you can't be the author of someone else's life. And also, it's hard to be a human. It's hard to just be in this universe and not know know why, and like
That's
just
right.
have to figure it out. And religions have had thousands of years to kind of like come up with some answers and a rhythm for your life and community and all these things. And you just have to like build a religion, like build your own life from scratch. Like that's hard. And so I think the balance that I think we all will find in our ministry now, I hear whispers of it from all three of you. It's like there's a balance there where like, hey, I can show you the science of happiness. I can show you some wisdom and some philosophy, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I've been studying religion for 20 years, so I can lay out some options for you, and then we have to follow your resonances, right? Because then that
Yes.
gives you the healthy amount of structure where it's like, yes, I do have tools that I've acquired in my life that can be helpful. I can't be your leader. Like you have to find your way here, but at least I can hopefully make that helpful for you or easier for you, because it is hard to be a human and too many options. This is also what we see sometimes with Gen Z spirituality. They're so overwhelmed with so many options for spirituality that it becomes analysis paralysis and you don't know how to move forward. And that's where you do, like, a coach is really helpful in that space. And so it sounds like we all kind of ended up in hopefully that healthy, happy medium place. But to Joe's point, you do have to know your ego. And I did a guided meditation one time where you work through like money, power, sex, like things like that, to see like where your ego shows up. And for sure, for me, it was like when people ask me a question and I know the answer and I can be like, well, Nietzsche said blah, 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 blah. Like that's where my ego shows up. And so knowing that helps me to like, hey, I know it's there. And because I know it's there, I can pull it back a little and hopefully stay in that helpful place for people.
You know, if I can, real quick, what has helped me tremendously is with God, with whatever's next, with whatever came before, all of those things are in that unknown space for me, right? And if I'm honest, I can say, I think strongly for all of us, that's unknown. So because we're, growing up in a Christian environment and we became so heavenly bound, heaven, no hell, just go straight to heaven kind of thing. So we became so focused on what's next and maybe God before. And I just totally lost sense of what's now. The only thing that's really real to me is now. So that's one thing I try to tell people when they ask me, well, aren't you concerned about what's going to happen when you die? I said, well, I don't have any thought of being concerned about what happened before I came here. So I'm not going to pick up a thought of what happens next. I just know now. And I'm just trying to live this life in the human that I am. And as difficult as that is at times, how can I be the best version of myself, the most loving version of myself, the most caring version of myself? How can I help people in the ways that I can help people? Whatever's going to happen next, whatever happened before, that becomes one of those inconsequential things to me. And that has helped me tremendously ease myself into being focused on now, which is what matters most to me.
I love that. Oh my goodness, I love that. All right, so I just have like two more questions for y'all because I don't want to keep y'all for too long. But damn, this is good. You can't get former minister people together and get in conversation because we all have so much to talk about. And I think that's one of the things I love about the work that we all do. Is that our work isn't necessarily just focusing on tearing down what was before. It's really trying to figure out how to orient afterwards. Like, what's next? Where do we go from here? And so one of the questions I want to ask is, what's more honest but also more difficult about doing this kind of work without religion being your guide? What's more honest about this work but also more difficult for you? I'm digging deep today, I told y'all.
I'll go there. So because I see a lot of nihilists in my work, and especially people who are very sensitive to suffering, who have had maybe a security blanket from religion that tempered that down, and then when they're kind of thrown into the world and have to see and feel the level unnecessary suffering is there in the world without a buffer. I think it's honest. I think there's bravery in doing that as a human, but it hurts and it's hard. And there are some times where someone is just really grieving that the world wasn't what they thought it was, and that, you know, they lost it. It's almost like looking at a baby who like just wants their blanket, their stuffed animal or something, and wishing I could give something to them there. But you know, and I can sit with it with them. I can give them tools to help them to face it and process it over time, but there's nothing that I can give them that can bypass the pain of what it is to wake up and realize there's a lot more suffering in the world than you realized when you could always say it's with, like, they're with Jesus now. I remember the first time I watched it was a Netflix documentary that I watched on a little boy named Gabriel Hernandez, and it was the first one that I watched post death of God for me. And it was a little boy who was tortured and killed by his parents, who just like saw nothing but torture in his life. And it was the first time that like I had no buffer, and I just had to sit with the idea that millions of children, that this is their reality, that this is the world, that they may not be with Jesus right now. And I was like sick on the couch. I had like an emotional flu for like a few days. It was so hard for me that first time. So those are the two words that you said. It's like there's some honesty in that. It changes you. It changes how you show up in the world. It's deeply changed me to face suffering more directly, but it hurts and it's hard.
Whew. That's real. That's real.
What was hard for me is getting away from Paul said, Peter said, Jesus said, David said. I remember one day I woke up and I realized, why the hell do I care about what they said so much? Where's my voice? And would they care about what I say? You know, would Paul give a fuck about what Kyle said? Would David care what Kyle said? You know, would Peter care what Kyle said? Why am I putting so much, you know, importance on what their words were? And I realized I had a voice. So what became more honest to me was my voice, which is what I try to point people to themselves is, you know, what does it matter what the Bible says? What does it matter what Paul says? Why does that matter? You know, it shouldn't matter. What do you say? How do you feel? How do you see it? Because I think if we can help people see the value and gain that confidence in their own inner core, their knowing, I think that goes a long way with helping us be able to function through this journey called life.
Yeah. I like that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Joe, for you, man, what is more honest, but also more difficult about doing this kind of work without religion?
Yeah. Earlier, I gave a metaphor of being in a house that I kind of grew up in, and it's this metaphorical home. And, you know, I was in this one room, and everybody that I knew was in that room. In fact, you know, I just went to the spot where my family, who are immigrants, where they first touched down here in the United States. And they came here because they felt that they would have more religious freedom. So they came for religious reasons. So going back generations, I was taught that in this certain room that we have this book that explains the answers of how the house got here, what the purpose is of us living in this house, and be careful not to ever go outside this room. And so I think maybe what makes that hard is if I wanted to live in truth, if I wanted to truly love my neighbor as myself, I had to understand my neighbor, and I had to explore other rooms, and I had to mostly do it alone. That everybody that I had really connection with,
Come on.
that you know, that they didn't join me on the journey. And when I said, hey, I don't know if I can adhere to the book of this room anymore, you know, I was the outcast, and that's hard. And that's why I think that building, you know, values-based communities, which I do now, is so important, because you know, what we do is more important than what we can or cannot believe. And right now, I look at our culture overall, and we have loneliness epidemic. I felt that. I felt that leaving more than ever in my life before to brave opening up that door and exploring on my own. I felt that, and I'm still not. I have days where I have great community. I have days where I feel like it's me traveling. It's an adventure, but sometimes I feel like I can be traveling alone. But I do think that's why we need places and spaces like Bridge City Global, West Hill, and other such places, Oasis. I know they're doing work, Sunday Assembly, where people can come together and they can talk about the things that matter most in life. They can do so together in a safe environment. We know that people see religion in different ways, the nuns, or however we want to group them or label them, which maybe that's not even the best idea. Their numbers are raising, and we know there's a loneliness epidemic. And so sometimes our challenges can become our strengths. Our challenges can become what gives us meaning. I love hiking and climbing mountains. It's a challenge, but every day I'm on the mountain, I never say, oh, I got to be on the mountain today. I say, what a journey it is. And I've been in some difficult situations, some very traverse weather on the mountain, So I guess that's, to me, it's all one big, beautiful mess. There's the pain is alongside the joy. And the hard parts of going about it alone, feeling that way sometimes, is also highlighted with joy when I find people like you, when I find Bridge Cities, when I find West Hills, when I find those Sunday assemblies of people say, hey, our gospel, as we've been talking about, it's greater. It's more inclusive. There's more room at the table. Really, for the only thing we don't tolerate is intolerance itself. And there's something beautiful to that. So.
Oh man. I think one of the things that gets overlooked is that when people lose their religion, they also lose their sense of ritual, routine, and rhythm. And those are the things that orient us in society. Those are the things that help us stabilize our relationships. It's literally how we regulate reality. And so for me, honesty, my work is more honest because I'm able to be more honest, but my work is more difficult because I am basically a part of a community now, not talking about Bridge City, but a part of a community now that is not a community, a part of, we've been talking about this a lot lately with Bridge City. So right now, like we're even expanding our operations to be more inclusive of different generations. So we're working on our students and families team to make sure we're creating content for children, creating events for children, but also making sure we're looking at the generations that came before us, because it's trying to be as inclusive as possible. If we're not multi-generational, we're not a community, we're a museum. We're just a place where this age group comes to hang out. And I think the most difficult thing for me is actually kind of being intentional about community. Is that because I think when I first started doing content 2 years ago and saying, hey, listen, y'all, I'm really in this to build community, there were a lot of people who were like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, we need more community. And I realized very quickly that most people didn't know what the hell community really meant. What a lot of people had in their minds was, yes, we need more spaces where atheists can rag on Christians. And I'm like, hey, bro, that's not a community. That's not how you build something. And the reason that bothered me, like, remember, I left the church not just because it wasn't true. I left because it wasn't helpful. And so I don't like being a part of things that are not helpful. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to events and I'm watching people, like, we're really excited about what we're tearing down, but I'm also watching our lives fall apart. I'm watching people who have to live by GoFundMes. I'm watching people who have nobody to talk to because now we've centered the subject on what we hate and not on what we love. We've centered the subject on what we left and not what we want to bring in. So that has been very, difficult for me finding a way not to just be the angry guy saying, hey, let's do better, y'all. God damn it. Like that's been hard for me. And I think that even slips off in some of my content, because it's not just let's build community because it's a nice thing to do. No, the loneliness epidemic is real. And in many ways, we are contributing to it, even when we don't mean to, because we're a part of the destabilizing of this engine that has provided a ritual, routine, and rhythm. And we're just kind of replacing it with rage. And that can be highly problematic. So I know that's been my thin line. That's been a thing that I've just been kind of walking and watching very closely, is that we don't pigeonhole community into this thing that church owns, nor do we pigeonhole community into just something of, oh no, community is just people hanging out. No, it is so much more than that. Community is people being present for each other. It's people being there with each other. So then I don't have to have just one person who sees me, but I have an entire community who sees me. And so I'm going to shut up for a moment and ask one final question, because I know you all have busy days and busy lives, and we try to be life affirming at Bridge City. We don't want to keep you here for 12 hours like we used to do in church. But when I became a minister, I had to do so because I felt called, because I felt anointed, because I felt that God had chose me to do his work. Outside of that superstitious framework, if God has not called you, if it's not obedience to a great commission, if it's not an obedience to evangelize and go convert and win the lost, what actually motivates you to do this now? If it's not a calling from God, if it's not obedience to the commission or the gospel, what motivates you to do this now?
I'll go ahead and start, if that's all right. Once again, not to sound generic and hippie-ish, but I hope it's out of, I'll be honest, it starts with a love for myself. But out of that, if I love myself, what I do affects you and what you do affects me. If I truly love myself, then I'm going to look after, the good of my neighbor and those around me in this world that we get to be in. And so that to me, and then maybe in the specific ways that I do things, there's an ethics structure called care ethics, and it came out of the feminist movement, and it's I very much align with it. But it starts with having attentiveness, and I think of it's even called like care ethics, and to me it's like that's what love is. Love is caring. Love is giving a damn. Love is right relationship with which is justice within yourself, justice within others, our intersocial relationships. And so, care ethics says that, we need to be attentive. You can look at so many different philosophies, real traditions. It starts with that idea, and I'm getting lost in the weeds. But basically, we need to be attentive, and then from there, we have to gain understanding of what needs are. If I am to love, I want to know, I want to understand. That way, I can truly love myself. I want to understand myself and love others, which means understanding our world the best I can, so that I know how to respond, which is the final pillar in care ethics. You have to respond. Love can be a noun. It can also be a verb. It's way better as a verb. When it becomes a noun, it's like that water that just, it gets, what's the word? Scummy. It doesn't move. And that's good for a while, but love does. Love is as love does. As I forget the author's name, but basically, it's action. And I don't say this to be feel good things. I say it because a couple days ago, when I was getting lost in an existential crisis that you would think I would have figured out in my life now, I have to say, Joe, what's the next damn step? You don't have the whole thing figured out, but how can you love the best that you can in this moment? And, it's not just something that hangs out in the theoretical clouds. It's something that meets me in the everyday, that gives me that reading, that meaning, that beauty of saying, hey, I don't have all the things above my pay grade figured out, but I do know this makes a difference for me right here and right now. And so yeah, for me, it's a love for myself, which then doesn't stop at me. It has to go to others, and it's an everyday adventure I get to be on, and I get excited about it. It has those tough times, it has those dark nights of the soul, but overall, it's the greatest adventure I've ever been on. And it actually started when I was a Christian, and because
Man.
of I took my Christianity seriously, it made me rethink how I practice my Christianity.
Oh, those are
leave it at
bars
that.
right there. No, those are
I went
bars
preacher mode
because
there.
because I took my Christianity seriously. It made me rethink my Christianity. Wow. No, I love that. And I don't think we have enough of this. And this is one of the reasons why I fell in love with you as a person, Joe, with you as well, Kyle, and why I love your work, Britt. I don't think we have enough people currently. I see it's changing, and that's why I love y'all who are speaking like this. We need more people who are on this side of belief, who are speaking about the human element, who are speaking about loving people, caring about people, supporting people, and understanding that, like, last week I talked about, like, our problems don't come from sin, it comes from complexity. And complexity requires comprehension and compassion. And that's something that that comprehension is not just a comprehension of reality. It's a comprehension of people. It's a comprehension of our social reality, our psychological reality. And I think that makes us more effective in the work. All right, who's next? Because y'all know I'll talk. Who's next? What motivates you if God is not forcing you to love people and forcing you to show up with these wonderful messages? What's motivating you to do it?
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. For me, it's a 6-letter word. It's the people.
Come on.
People. I'll say that I'm not big on needing a community. Right?
Yeah.
So I didn't like going to church as a child. I didn't like going to church as a pastor. So, with that whole church thing, and I was like, yes,
I'm free.
Oh, great. This is wonderful.
Football
Why
on
do
Sundays.
people go to church? Like, I don't understand why people go to church anyway. So, I don't need community in that sense, but I don't take away from the countless amount of people that do. Someone said to me once, he said, you talk against going to church, but don't forget that this is all some people have. This is all some people have. They get up intentionally every week, and they know they're going to go listen to garbage, and they know they're not going to really enjoy themselves, but they're going to get a little bit of attention, and they don't really get a chance to see people and talk to people all week long, and they know the people, and the people know them, and it makes them feel good, and so. That I was, and although there's a part of me that says I wish the whole thing goes away, I understand that there is a need for community. So I do appreciate the communities that are rising up to say, hey, here's a safe community for you, though.
Yeah.
Here's a safe community for you, where you can hold on to a belief of a God if you want to. And we're not going to make you feel bad about that. But what we're going to really try to do is help you be more aware of who you are, your intrinsic power, your ability to love, your ability to be compassionate and empathetic and caring for other people, and things of that nature. So for me, it's for the people, and I'm my sweet spot that I think that I found and what's comfortable for me is when I was deconstructing, even though I didn't know that's what I was doing. On social media, there were people who were asking questions and saying things that got me thinking even more.
Yeah.
Right. And at first, when I would read these things and see these things, I would think, how dare you say those things? Who do you think you are? I wouldn't say this to them on their post, but inside I'd be like exploding with, you're crazy, you're wrong. But then later on, I'm so glad I didn't block these people or unfriend them, because later on I would understand what they were saying. And I was so glad that those little seeds were being sown. So for me, that's what I try to do. I try to present things from a first person perspective of, I think, I feel, I see, I understand, just to throw it out there to get the thought going for those who are starting to do the thinking, because I want them to feel like there's a place for your thoughts. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You're not some wayward person. It's okay to think, and it's okay to have these questions. And perhaps I will say the things that you're thinking, and that'll give you a little bit more courage to keep going on if you're thinking. So for me, it's for the people. And I'm happy for the communities that are rising.
Yeah.
and emerging to give people a place where, you know what, on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, or whatever, I'm going to be in that community, man. It's going to feel good. I love the intro, Darante,
Oh,
of
thank
your
you.
program, all that stuff going on. I was like, you know, this dude is recreating this thing the right way. I mean, that is just some bad shit right there. Like, I would be part of that if I wanted to be in a community like that. I'd be like signing up and, you know, signing in every week.
Wow.
So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Man.
And but again, it's for me, it's for the people.
It's the people.
You know, it's always going to be for the people.
I love that. I love that. Britt, what is it for you? What if God is not making you do this, what's your motivation?
Yeah, I have kind of one answer that changed over time. So I'll just if you give me a minute here. So when I first it was the moment that I realized that I had lost my faith in God was when it was time for me to write my dissertation, and realizing I don't have, like, when I have to actually, like, not just be in school and listening to everybody else, but when I have to write something, I don't have anything to say. And so I told my doctorate professor, the only thing that I can write in this dissertation is that I went to Christian theology school for years, and at the end of it, I know nothing, and I dropped out. And I didn't finish my dissertation. I'm trying to finish it now slowly, but it was, 10 years ago. And so at that moment, I have this master's degree in theology of a God that I no longer believe in. And, my job was teaching seminary. My whole life would rotate around this. I truly didn't know what to do with my life. And the thing that kind of came up with at the time, when I was just really scrambling with, like, what do I do? I'm an adult. Like, all my life has been towards this God that I don't believe in anymore. And the parable of the Good Samaritan has always been highly influential for me. And what I love about this parable is that the Samaritan was not the one who was in the correct religion. He was outside the covenant people. He had incorrect beliefs, but he was the one who stopped and showed love to someone who was wounded on the side of the road. And there was something about that was still really beautiful for me, where I could say, hey, I went through this deconstruction alone. It was really painful. It was really hard. It was like first one in my family. This was, a long time ago now. And I had this sense that I think I've been in this world long enough that even if I don't have the right beliefs, or I lost my faith and didn't choose to, or whatever, I could help people who were spiritually wounded on the side of the road and help them rebuild some kind of meaningful and or spiritual life after leaving religion. And that there was a sense for me, because I still had a lot of doubts at the time with my loss of faith. It was still very scary for me. I kind of thought that, like, hey, if there is a God, the best thing I can do with the cards that I was dealt with losing my faith in theology school is helping others and being the Good Samaritan, even with that card dealt to me. And I felt like that was the best thing that I could do. So I just kind of started making steps in that direction. And then over time, now I'm in a place where even if I could know for sure, which I don't, but even if I could know for sure that there was no God, and I knew for sure that that there was no afterlife, that there was no consequences. I so love a purpose-driven life, a spiritual life, a life with good relationships, a life with a lot of love and service and inner peace, that I would still do this work even if I knew that for sure that there was no consequences, no God. And something that's really confusing for Christians is when I tell them that, like, hey, even as an atheist, even if I knew for sure there was no God, no consequences, and I could steal $1 million from someone and it's unethical, but I could do it and I could know for sure that I would get away with it, I wouldn't do it. That's really hard for Christians to understand, because their morality is built on God. And they don't realize that, like, if I stole that, the disconnection in myself, disconnection in my relationships, I would be in $1 million house and I'd have to keep distracted all the time, because I'd be betraying myself at some level, right? And it wouldn't be worth it. Like, for me, I'm kind of emo and neurotic and really got into some deep, dark philosophy. For me, like, hedonism is not worth being alive, but a life of meaning and service and love is a life fundamentally worth experiencing, even if it ends. And so that's where I ended up.
Oh, I love that. Oh, dang, that got deep. And I promised everybody I'll close it here, so I'm not going to ask any more questions, no matter how bad I really want to. But what I'm hearing is, like, we all lost religion, but it sounds like we all found reason to do well anyway. And what I hear in that, though, is that the reason seems to be more liberating than it was in the religion. Oftentimes when we think when religion is the motivation for how we help people, we're rarely actually helping people. We're just following the pattern. We're following the creed. We're doing what we were told to do. And the people, end up becoming caricatures of themselves to us. But I think on this side, at least for me, one of the things that I've experienced is having a greater responsibility to actually pay attention to people and not having a prepackaged answer. And so one of my motivations to do this work is actually really an extreme curiosity. I am extremely curious about how people are living, how they're finding ways to navigate life, how they're orienting. And that was one of the things I got to be honest with myself about after leaving ministry, was that, hey, there was a real selfish reason you like being a pastor. And it's just like, why? Because you like being in people's business. You like knowing everybody. You like knowing what's going on with everybody. Like I am a hyper curious person, insanely curious. And actually helping people gives me a better seat by being present in people's lives, by being available, by being useful, by having something that they see as valuable or helpful. It gives me a better view into the world. And to me, like as a person who just loves to learn, that's incredible for me. And it feels good to be able to just say that, to live in that nuance, because before it had to be, no, my reason had to be God. My reason couldn't be because people need help. My reason couldn't be because this person deserves to feel better. My reason had to be God wants me to do this. And if God doesn't want me to do this, then I shouldn't do it. And that was really the trap for me. But living on this side has just been like, no, I have reason to do good things, and it's good for them and it's good for me. And finally, being able to live in a place where something is mutually beneficial without me feeling bad that I'm violating some cosmic code, that feels incredible. And so thank all three of you for being here with us today. Do any of you have any last words before I let you go and drop you back into the back room? Anybody got any last
I just
words?
wanted to say lovely to meet you. Sorry I was late, but you guys are for sure my people. And just like I felt so at home just hopping in the conversation. So thank you. And so nice to meet you guys.
Thank you so much for being
Likewise.
here. I'm so glad you're able to make it. Yes. Well, y'all, thank you all again. I've had Kyle and Joe on before. So now, Britt, I'm going to have to get you on one time where it's just me and you, because I've done it with them. And we're going to have to do a call-in show again. Kyle, we ain't did a call-in show in a while, man.
Yeah.
And we finally got some help here now. And just since you shouted out our opening and stuff, I have to give that credit where the credit is due. Our friendly neighborhood Z-Man, which is in the back right now, he's our head of production for Bridge City. He handles pretty much all of that and does one hell of a good job at it, man. He's really amazing. We've been building a really great team here, and I really, oh man, don't get me started talking about them. I won't ever shut up because they're great. All right, I love y'all so much. Thank y'all for being here with me. I'm going to drop y'all to the back of the stage while we close out the show. Audience, make sure you say your goodbyes to everybody. I will do my best to bring them back on again. If they don't mind tolerating me, because y'all know I keep people longer than I'm supposed to. Do I have any announcements that I need to hit? I don't think so. Somebody said this was so good. Yes, was nice to watch. I'm glad y'all were able to be here and enjoy it. There were some things I was supposed to announce and I forgot to announce, so I'm just going to say it real quickly. Hey, I'm in this competition. It's called Entrepreneur of Impact. All you got to do is vote for your boy every day. So do so. Yeah, that's me. I'm looking all fly, so fresh and so clean. My bald head is shaved right and everything. But anyway, it's an opportunity for our community to win up to $26,000, get some mentorship stuff, and appear in a magazine. So, hey, you want to help out? That's a great way to do it. Other than that, we have movie night coming up for the community, and we're going to be watching Sinners and talking about it. You don't want to miss that. All right, that's all I got. I was about to say that's all I got. We actually do have news and close. I had such a good time today. Actually, I'm not going to do the next steps and close today because I've already kept you all over 3 hours. And so I'm just going to let it close out with some music. Thank you all for being here today. Until next time, keep rising and be the bridge and give me some time to find a song.